Dixie, I fucking love you, bro. You're incredible. Thank you so much. Mwah. I doubt that very much, Dixie. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Have fun at your party, May. I hope you have a good time. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I'm late. Thank you, Laura. Thank you for the tier 1. I appreciate it. I'll say hi to you all in just a moment. I need to get rid of pre-rolls, so bear with me for a bit. Hello, cuties. Welcome in. How are you all doing today? Can you go change my shorts? No. Oh my god. Kai, thank you for the tier 1. Thank you for the 3-month resub. Holy fuck. We don't need a hype train. Just ignore the thing at the top of the screen. Look at the poll, not the hype train, okay? Look at the poll. I started a poll, okay? That's what we need to focus on. Understand? Be good for me, chat. Be good. Go vote in that poll. I need you to. I need it. Oh my god. Thank you, Renry, for the 100 bits. Is it just me, or is this music like crazy loud? It's probably just me, right? It's fine. Is it too quiet? Music sounds good. It's really calm and soft. Perfect. Okay, then it's just my headset. That's fucky wucky. Beautiful. It's really nice. Awesome. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you. So I'm sorry I'm late today. I was having a lot of technical difficulties. Oh my goodness. This music is actually so loud for me. I don't know why. I have no clue why. I can hardly hear myself. Okay. Let me greet all of you cuties. Chi-Chi, good to see you. Mickey, congrats on getting your DS. Welcome in. Hello to Senior Rose, Mickey, Renry, Chi-Chi, Dixie, thank you again for the 14 months, dude. It's fucking crazy. Hello, May. Hello, Nene. Hello, Tiny Burger. Hello, Laura. Thank you again for the 3 months. Hello, Senior Rose. Hello, Vampire Catboy. Hello, Z. Hello, Kira. Hello, Kai Kai. Hi, Joy. Hi, Yuki. Hey, Lion. Hey, Milkers. Hey, Chaos. Yeah, let me be your audiobook on your drive. I would love that. Beautiful. Okay. Here, I'm gonna do something a little bit here, just to make it more bearable for me on my end. Okay, is that about the same volume that it was a second ago? I hope so. That should be fine. That should be fine. I need to be able to hear myself right now. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Oh shit. I just saw a couple of people join the Discord. We got some crazy influx in Discord recently because of that Twitter post that I made. Love to see it. Love to meet all these new friends. Hello, Camille. So I'm using a different microphone today. I don't know how different I sound. Oh, I'm not even just chatting yet. Hold on. I didn't even realize I was still in the start screen. I've been doing so many things. Hi. You were the first one here, but you didn't get first or UDS in time. Who got first? Did anyone get first? Mickey also got first. I see. I just missed that. Oh, thank you for the head rubs, Tiny Burger. I appreciate it. Oh, and a hydrate? Here, let me... Name of the Wind. Yes, that's a good choice. I think both were really good choices, but I'm so ready for Name of the Wind. We are about to... Hi, Stubby. Why are you giving me bits while you're driving, Chaos? Why? Scary, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Powerhouse. Glad to have you. I see that you joined the Discord before following me on Twitch. Love to see it. You haven't started driving yet. Okay, good girl. Good girl. How different do I sound, guys? I'm curious. How am I doing? I'm doing really well. Thank you for asking, Chi-Chi. How are you? Well, I'm a little bit frazzled because of the whole like drivers thing. I'm really worried that my microphone is just gonna be dead. If you'd like to join the Discord, Vampire Catboy, there is the link. I sound great. I'm sure I sound okay, but like, do I sound different? Is the question. Yeah, you were one of the first 3 that got the hype train started. Actually, you were the first sub. You were the first sub. I sound like me? Okay. I'll take it. Was it just a waste of money to buy a new microphone? Kind of softer for you? Okay. Yeah, there's probably a little bit more background noise too, right? Yes, yes, yes. I'm not talking about like my voice. I'm talking about like, is there more background noise? Does my tone of voice sound different or like the clarity? Because it is a different microphone. It's a completely different type of microphone as well. Chaos, darling, you are such a good girl. You are so fucking lovely. I can't wait until the next time I get you in VC and I get to fluster the fuck out of you. I'm so proud of you. You're gonna do great on your drive today. No background noise? I highly doubt that. Thank you, Renry. You're a sweetheart. Alright. Guys, I'm really fucking excited for the book today. Because where we left off, Kvothe was about to start telling his story. And we're about to start hearing about Kvothe's life. And this is where the meat and potatoes of the book get started. Hello, Egg. Welcome in. How are you today? You're on PC and you hear absolutely nothing besides my voice and the music. I meant like, well, I have a... Yo, Ian, what's going on? I have a noise gate. So when I'm not talking, you shouldn't hear anything. Like there. That was perfect silence. But while I am talking, I'm sure some of my laptop's fan noise is coming through as well. Ian, is it your birthday? Happy birthday. Joy, thank you for dropping by to say hello. You hear nothing when I speak besides my voice. I'll take your word for it for now. Happy birthday, Ian. Congratulations. You're another year older. How do you feel? You can vouch for Kira on this one? Okay. Okay. I guess I'll believe you guys. I guess I'll believe you. Is the music too quiet now? It's perfect. Oh my goodness. Okay, now that's a little bit loud. There. That should be fine, right? You can always check the VOD to clip yourself. Yeah, that's true. I'll check the VOD. Just because it's going to bother me. Come on. There we go. That seems fine. That seems fine. That seems good. Beautiful. Hey, Vampire Catboy. Thanks for joining the Discord. I appreciate you. Kira, you little piece of shit. Don't think I can't tell when you're just blowing smoke up my ass. But even if you weren't, you think you're worth listening to? You think you're worth the fucking time of day? Kira? You do? Well, I'll show you exactly how fucking wrong you are. The only thing you're worth is the bottom of my fucking shoe. And you'd be lucky to get that as well. Hey Moo, welcome in. Oh my goodness. Hello Wisp, how are you? Wisp, there is a streamer that I watch who calls her viewers Wisps. You might be interested in them if you like VTubers. She's a Fox VTuber. She's very cute. Unless perhaps you know her already. Her name is Maya. You'll find some fellow Wisps over there. Can you hear that? Oh my god. That's loud, isn't it? Shit, I need to be careful. This microphone picks up so much more noise than my other one. Sorry. Not too loud? Okay. I'll take that. Oh my god, okay. Hi, Jaded. My sound looks so fucking weird today. I'll figure it out. I do stream tomorrow. I was gonna say I don't stream tomorrow, so I can figure it out tomorrow, but I do stream tomorrow. I'm collabing with my good friend Emmy Arcturus. I'm doing pretty good, Jaded, aside from some computer issues. How are you doing? I really don't, like, I'm hoping that I don't have to use my Blue Yeti for tomorrow's stream, because that would be less than ideal. It's gonna pick up a lot more background noise, like, you can probably hear all of my keyboard sounds, whether I'm like typing heavily or not. Hi, Pookie. You doing all right? I'm glad to hear that. Why would I need to switch mics? The Deity VO7U is a dynamic mic versus the Blue Yeti, which I'm using now, which is a condenser mic. The condenser mic picks up a lot more noise. Condenser mics are meant to be used in studio settings. So places with very little background noise, like sound isolation, stuff like that. If I had a studio kind of setting, the Blue Yeti would be perfect. It'd be great. But I don't. So because I have, a laptop on my desk, which makes a lot of noise, I have an air conditioner unit / heater that like I usually have going while I'm live. I got the Deity VO7U. It's a USB dynamic mic, and it's really good for the price. Hey Kiki, thank you for the hydrate. How are you doing? It's good to see you. And Dixie, I did see your question. I would love to play A Way Out soon. I know it's been a little while since we beat It Takes Two. You woke up at 5:30 a.m. and thriving. Oh my god. Was this on purpose? I hope so. Hold on. I need to You're cold? Hi, dearling. Let me just boom. Oh my goodness. Boom. Boom. Those are some streamers that you should definitely check out. Maybe like that sometimes if you live at the equator. If you live at the equator. Oh. Oh, it was too hot. I see, I see. Too hot at 5:30? Oh man. That's wild. Hi, Donut Cat. Thank you for stopping by. I always enjoy seeing your warm messages. Hey, Kaz, what's going on? Of course, Kira. Grips you like hamburger. Juice. What the fuck is happening? Why are we getting like food review fucking roleplay? Oh my goodness. I have no idea what's happening, but I'm hungry. That's all I know. 100 out of 10 would chew Kazu again. You are not food. Oh, but you looking like a snack though. Mm-mm-mm. You know what I'm saying? Full course. Take a bite of this, maybe I will, Kira. You better watch out. You're about to obliterate everyone. Not if I obliterate you first. I'll get you unable to crawl out of bed for a week. Oh, excuse me. Imagine. Stretch, I could do that. You know what? Let's try something. Let's try something. I want you guys to tell me, how annoying is this? Oh wait, you still can't. You can't hear my laptop, my sound when I'm not actually talking. Interesting, interesting. Does this sound any different to you guys? You could probably hear a lot more of me, right? Hello, Fall Chick. How are you today? I turned off my noise gate. For like ASMR stuff, maybe that's something fun we can do. What the fuck is happening? Why can you really not hear anything aside from my voice? I can hear it in the monitor. There's a little fuzz now. Okay. I turned the gain all the way up. That's why. Okay. So about right here is probably where I want to be. Probably a little bit less fuzz now. Actually, yeah, maybe something like this. Maybe something like that. Probably took a moment to register. No, I mean like when I'm not talking, there should be a little bit. Wait, no one brought it up for about a year? What do you mean? Oh, you gaslighting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You will never escape that. You will never escape that. Oh, okay. So before stream, I submitted a ticket to Deity's website, like a support ticket. And they just replied saying that they received it and they'll get to it within 24 to 48 hours. So there is a very soft fuzz when I speak. You swear you didn't hear it before? Okay. You probably just needed to hear it louder for you to like know what to look for, right? It was probably still there before. Okay, maybe. Oh, I'm turning it the wrong way. There we go. There we go. Maybe that's better. Angelic Neko, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the powerhouse. Glad to have you. Hey Gallows, how you doing? You know for certain it is there now? Yeah, okay. Maybe this is a better balance. Maybe this is a better balance. I think I might be a little bit quieter now though. So, thanks for lurking, Catboy. I appreciate you. Gallows, how you doing today? My audio feels the same to me? Okay. Good night, Lion. Sleep well, sleep well. Okay. Well. Chaos. Chaos, you better be driving safely, okay? I have a calming voice. I'm glad you think so. You've only just now realized it. You were so calm you didn't even realize. Yeah? Cute. Hey, Alex, what's going on? Oh, shit. Oh my god, bootlegger. Oh, Kira, I think that message was okay. I don't think there was a huge problem. I think like stuff like that, like it's indirect, it's fine. You know. It's all good. Hi Larix. How you doing, homie? Yeah. Bootlegger, thank you for the bits. I appreciate you. I'm doing good. How are you? I'm glad I'm actually live. I wasn't sure if I would be able to today. I was having some computer troubles earlier. But we improvise, we adapt, we overcome. Honestly, I could do with all the syllables aside. Do without all the syllables aside from the last one. You're vibing, a little bit of a nap. You only sleep for about 24 hours. Ramen quesadillas with chicken, nice, dude. Quesadillas, good stuff. But I hope you get some good rest. Yeah, I love streaming, guys. I can't get enough of it. Genuinely, I was like craving it yesterday. I only get like 1 day off every week, 1 or 2. But when I get my days off, I just like can't help but look forward to the next time I'm live. I've got so much fire in my fucking belly, dude. Just call me Natsu. I'm so just dying to be here. Oh fuck, Kira, I just saw your redeem. I apologize. uh, Hi Lily. Lex, you still streaming, bro? How's streaming been going for you? You having fun with it? Hi, Aaron, darling. How are you? You streamed 2 whole times this week? I'm proud of you, man. Are you still having fun with it? That's the more important question. How did the pops sound with the different mic? So, with the Blue Yeti, the sound card in the Blue Yeti is actually pretty decent, so I can plug my headphones into that instead of the actual computer itself. So I can actually like monitor my audio in real time, and I can hear what you guys hear. A little bit different because I don't have my my EQ and stuff set up for the feedback like my monitor, but hearing those pops is pretty interesting. Chaos, focus on driving, darling. I don't want you typing and driving, okay? You make sure you're safe. Promise me. Dixie, fucking another custom Discord role. How many of those are you gonna get, man? Yeah, I can hear my own voice. I can. You're at the store? What you buying? Okay, good girl. I just want to make sure you're safe. As many as you can. You know what? At this point, take 2. You get 2 for 1 this time, Dixie. Because you can just make them yourself. Oh, wait. I don't know if you can make them yourself anymore. I'll personally give you permissions to create roles in Discord so you can make it yourself. I'm going to do it right now. Where is a role that only you have? Yes, here we go. Manage roles. Yes. There we go. Yeah, now you can. Let me know if that didn't work. Ah, seems like it did. Beautiful, beautiful. I'm glad. I love you guys. Thank you all for being so fucking amazing. I didn't expect so many of you here today. Hi, Lily. Vibing with Jet. Yeah. I feel like Saturdays are a little bit different, right? Or I guess Friday nights for you. It's a completely different time of day. Plus, it was late today. So many of you showed up. Hi, Abby. Welcome in. You're gonna listen to me to fall asleep in a little? Please do. I'd love to whisper in your ear while you get all cozy. Saturday hits different for real. Need all the Mino time. Well, this makes me feel better because like around this time of day would be when I'm streaming once I move back to the States. So I was a little bit worried. Like this would be my during the week time. Something like this. So it looks like it's potentially feasible. I mean, we'll see. I'll have to try some things out. It'll have to depend on what kind of job I find when I get back to the States as well. What time did I go live? Well, today I went live about half an hour ago. Normally it would be an hour and a half ago. Yes, please give me some hot chocolate. Can you make mine with some dairy substitute milk, though? I'm lactose intolerant. And caffeine intolerant, but we don't have to worry about that today. You get to fall asleep listening to me in real time? What, do you normally listen to VODs? Dark oat milk hot chocolate? Oh, Irish hot cocoa? Bro, it's 10:30 a.m. You'll do your best? Nice. Is the dark describing the oat milk or the chocolate? The chocolate? Okay. No, it's not your bad. I was just making sure. I wasn't sure what dark oat milk was. Maybe oat milk's evil twin. Oat milk that fell to the dark side. It succumbed to the temptations of power. Like me. Up with a hot chocolate for you. Evil milk. Hey, my name does mean milk in Finnish, so not that far-fetched. You listen to the VODs when you're actually going to bed? Wait, you actually listen to my VODs to fall asleep? Holy shit. That's amazing. That's like really fucking flattering. Kira. The first thing that came to mind was Kiki. But we already have a Kiki. So you want oat milk in your hot cocoa? Yeah. That sounds good. That sounds good. I'd love that. Thank you. You've returned from drinking 2 monsters? Marm, please drink some water as well. Why 2? What about Kia? You just want to take the R out? What if she wants to be a pirate? She needs the R. It's horrible. Kira is such a pretty name already. Rebranding. Then Kira it is. Then I'll think about it. I refunded your points. You have a friend named Kira, ironically. Wait, is their name Kira actually, or just ironically? You have homemade rice pudding? Ooh. I went to the store before stream today. So I've got some snacks for later. Got some food for later. Yes, it's actually Kira. Okay, not just ironically Kira. It's funny. Debating if you buy one of those title things for your fiance so you can be officially a lord. Is that a thing? You can buy a title? How much are they? How to buy a lordship. Become a lord of Scotland. Is it Scotland specifically? By purchasing a deed of individual noble title ownership, Prince Michael of Sealand's royal family will grant you the title of Lord or Lady of Sealand. What? How much does it cost? €25 to €200. Oh, wait. Getting yourself a legitimate manorial title is very much possible. It's not exactly cheap. You can expect to buy a lord title at auction anywhere upwards of €5,000. Depending on how much plot you want, that's fair. That'd be kind of funny if I actually just became a lord. Maybe that'll be the first thing that I put on my throne. Is a lordship. I've had people call me lord in the past. It'd be funny to actually make it a thing. My lord. Oh my god. Yeah, maybe now you'd have an actual good reason to kneel. Not that the reason I wanted you to kneel was a bad reason. Lord Mido. What if that's the name that I give them as well? Does it have to be my legal name? Can I legally be Lord Mido in Scotland? My lord. Oh, Mexican rice pudding? Ooh. Yes, exactly. Think it would be legally Lord in Scotland. I mean, like Lord Mido, not just like Lord, my name, my legal name. It does have to be your legal name. That's a shame. Hi, Snom. Hi, Lady Mystic. Hi. What if I just legally change my name to Mido? I don't have a last name though, lore-wise. Like, actually, why don't I change my category to ASMR? This is basically just ASMR, right? We're gonna start reading soon anyways. It can be a mononym. I guess no one else has a name like me, right? Yeah, but like, I know a lot of VTubers have like last names. You certainly have never met a Mido. Yeah, you have. You've met one. You do not? Your name isn't Calamity Kamakira? Kira Calamity? I know like Mizu does, Mizu Hisaito. Kohi does, Kohitsuki Moka. uh like Aomi, Aozora Mirai. Aozora Mirai. People don't set their Twitch names to their actual name. Sometimes like VTubers in their lore have like a last name, you know? Akuma Nihume. Yeah, Nimune. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I mean. So, your last name is Wrecked. Yeah. Dixie Wrecked. Gallos is just rooster in Spanish. Have I been saying it wrong this whole time? Gallos? Gallos. Gallos Gamer. Gambare. Maito Gambare. That's funny. The OG name, only the real ones remember. True. Would you prefer that I call you Gallos instead of Gallos? Either is fine with me. Gambare. Yare daze. Rooster is your Chinese zodiac sign, but no, you're not saying it wrong either. Okay. Gallos. Are you Hispanic? Gallos. In the Chinese zodiac, you're a monkey. Sí. Oh, qué bueno. Quiero más empezar. Empezar? No, that's to start, right? Emprender. Entender? Fuck, it's been a long time. Quiero más entender español. Estoy muy, muy rusty. I'm very rusty with Spanish, but I want to learn more. Muy, muy rusty. Entiendo. Yeah, entender, I think, is to understand, or entender. What is to learn? Aprender, aprender. Yeah, quiero aprender español más. Smooth voice and speaking another language. Yeah. What language do you want me to speak? Entiendo as I understand. Oh, I got you. Yeah. Entiendo, comprendo. But aprender. Quiero aprender español. Mucho más. Hello, Clover. Bienvenido. Welcome in. Where's Laura when you need him? True. Laura sounds real good when she speaks Spanish. Gracias, de nada. De nada. I got it. We'll see. I just need to remember vocab. These days, when I try to remember words in Spanish, all that comes to mind is Japanese. You're blushing? Nande? 恥ずかしくないけど、大丈夫か? You probably know the answer. Yeah, I think I just did it. 今、それをしてるけど。何? 大丈夫か? 大丈夫ないか? 大丈夫じゃないか? Kawaii, kawaii. I teach you Japanese, you teach me Spanish. You got yourself a deal. Bet. Gajos-kun. Garos-kun. You're not cute? とても可愛いよ。嘘じゃないよ。とても可愛いよ。That's fucking hilarious. Sorry, I got a funny DM on Twitter. Fuck, speaking of Twitter, I always forget to do this, man. I always forget to do this. My fucking Twitter name does not say live. Come on, I gotta take advantage of Twitter while it's still running, right? Boom. Also, I'm one Twitter follower away from 1969, which is the year that the United States landed on the moon. The first manned mission to the moon, 1969. It's fucking awesome. I hope I can hit 2K before Twitter explodes. You're trying so hard not to smile. Why not smile? 笑ってください. Emiをしてください. Wait a second. We did it. Oh my god, we did it. 1969, we just did it. Yo, who did it? Who fucking did it? Who was it? Jose Gal? Was that Gallos? Was that you? Jose. Yep, thank you, bro. Oh, you're a sweetheart. Thank you, thank you. How long have I been live? Almost an hour already? What the fuck? You don't know what's going on? I just hit 1,969 followers on Twitter. Thanks to Gallos. Tan linda, Gallos. Hi, C. When you said going to the moon, I don't know why I thought of that Bruno Mars song. Talking to the moon. Patrick Rothfuss. Pixie Faye, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the powerhouse. Glad to have you. How are you doing today? Improve karaoke. That reminds me, I gotta do more karaoke soon. I'll do a karaoke stream next week. Next week's schedule is going to be a little bit different because I'm not streaming on Tuesday. I've got plans. But I'm going to do an extra stream on Friday to make up for it. You love my voice? I get your heart beating faster? Ore no koe o kikoeru toki doki doki suru kana? Omoshiroi. No stream Tuesday. I'll post my schedule, don't you worry. I'll do the thing that I did last week that I forgot to do this week, which is make events for each stream that's scheduled so that you can all like mark yourself as interested. You'll get like notified when I go live, and it'll show you your localized time as well. So no need to convert time zones. But I also, that's right, I put if you check below the stream, hi Rikar, welcome. If you check below the stream, I added a new little thing there. Oh my goodness. Pixie Faye. So that's where the follow came from. Thank you for the raid. Thank you so much. Welcome in, raiders. My name is Mido. I'm a villain VTuber. And y'all better be careful. Because once you get caught in my clutches, it's not so easy to leave. How was your stream? What were you up to? Welcome in, raiders. Did you have a good time with Pixie? Welcome. It's kind of funny to see people making passwords and you're here eating dinner. Let's get a normal shout out for them as well. You were also doing ASMR. I got you. Yeah, we're about to start reading some Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, which is one of my favorite books of all time. Hello, Jabadams. Welcome in. I'm doing real good. You're sneaky like that? You did some reading too? Oh. You heard my voice and knew I was the one to raid? I was the one, huh? I like the sound of that. Thank you so much for entrusting me with your community. I appreciate it. What were you reading, if you don't mind me asking? Some stuff I've read in the past is like Coraline. We've read some Edgar Allan Poe. We're currently reading Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, as I said. We read a bit of Throne of Glass the last time, but today we're reading more Name of the Wind. Lily, thank you for the head rub. Good luck to you. It's always so flattering when people compliment my voice. Lovely vibes in here, thank you. A Single Stone by Meg McKinley. I've not heard of it. I hope it was good though. Yeah, we're about to get started with the book. I've been doing that thing that I normally do, which is just talk at the start of stream and then not realize how much time goes by. It's very smooth and warm. Oh my god, you're making me feel warm. Thank you, Pixie. You're too sweet. Oh, fuck yeah. I'm glad too, Gauss. I'm very glad too. Desi's voice is... That's how I found her. I was watching Imagine Red, and Desi was playing with Red. I don't remember what they were playing, but I heard Desi laugh, and I'm like, oh shit. Enzyme! Yeah, I'm Emmy's friend. I'm doing a collab with her tomorrow. I remember you, Emmy Arcturus, yeah. Yeah. Looking forward to it. Yeah, you get carried away with talking to chat all the time. Yeah, it's when they're this cute. I mean, it's hard not to, right? Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah. Readings of Poe would be great to put up on YouTube. I don't know if I'd be able to with like copyright stuff. Because it's not mine, right? Technically, I don't think I should be reading books on Twitch either. But like, you know. Hey. I think it's not a huge deal. Alright, I need to restock on liquids. So, I will be back in just a moment with some water. And then we're going to get this book started, okay? Let me just, no sound. Okay. Let me just head over to BRB. I'll be back in just a moment. Alright, we back. Winter is upon us. Fuck winter, man. Fuck winter. You're a proud tsundere? Noted. Okay. You guys ready to read this fucking incredible book with me? Rio, what's going on, man? It's good to see you. Thank you for the head rub. How you doing today? Mickey. Okay. Mickey, you are such a good girl. You are such a good Apex partner. And I'm very much looking forward to playing again with you. You are so lovely. And I'm proud of you. Enjoy having me talk in your ear while you sleep. Alright. You guys, you guys ready for this book? I'm so ready for this book. Hell yeah, man. Thank you for popping in. It's good to see you, Rio. Sorry, don't mind me. Okay. Z. You're gonna act like Bakugo but without the cursing? It's okay to curse here if you want to. Alright, let's get to this book, yeah? Okay. Good night, Mickey. Alright. So, where we left off, Kvothe had finally convinced Chronicler to take 3 days to listen to Kvothe's story. Here, see. You really want to take my time away when I'm introducing this fucking book, just to give you attention here, see? You little piece of fucking shit. Are you kidding me? Pfft. Sit the fuck down. Get back in your corner. Get back under the fucking staircase. Out of sight. You think you can just come in here? Just degrade me right off the fucking bat? The fucking gall of you. You think you're worth my attention? You think you're worth my attention, especially when I'm about to start something important? No. You wouldn't be worth my attention even when I'm doing nothing. Even when I'm bored out of my fucking mind, I'd rather stare at the wall than give you attention. Only time I'll give you attention is when I feel like stepping on you. When I feel like shoving your face into the ground. When I feel like showing someone their place. Especially someone who doesn't seem to remember on their own. Like you. So you're gonna sit the fuck down and listen to me read this book? Am I gonna have to teach you a lesson here, see? Hey B, welcome in. You scary? I mean, I am a villain, man. I am a villain. I should hope I'm scary. Yeah, Aaron. Oh my god. Hi, 16. Welcome in. Alright, so as I was saying before, here's he very fucking rudely interrupted me. Here's he. Come back. Crawl on my lap. Let me read to you. So as I was saying, Kvothe had convinced Chronicler to take 3 full days to hear his story, to record it. So, this next chapter, chapter 7, is going to be the morning that they begin. Chapter 7 of Beginnings and the Names of Things. Sunlight poured into the waystone. It was a cool, fresh light, fitted for beginnings. It brushed past the miller as he set his water wheel turning for the day. It lit the forge the smith was rekindling after 4 days of cold metalwork. It touched draft horses hitched to wagons, and sickle blades glittered sharp and ready at the beginning of an autumn day. Inside the waystone, the light fell across Chronicler's face and touched a beginning there, a blank page waiting for the first words of a story. The light flowed across the bar, scattered 1,000 tiny rainbow beginnings from the colored bottles, and climbed the wall toward the sword, as if searching for one final beginning. But when the light touched the sword, there were no beginnings to be seen. In fact, the light the sword reflected was dull, burnished, and ages old. Looking at it, Chronicler remembered that though it was the beginning of a day, it was also late autumn and growing colder. The sword shone with the knowledge that dawn was a small beginning compared to the ending of a season, the ending of a year. Chronicler pulled his eyes away from the sword, aware that Quoth had said something, but not knowing what. "I beg your pardon?" "How do people normally go about relating their stories?" Quoth asked. Chronicler shrugged. "Most simply tell me what they remember. Later, I record events in the proper order, remove the unnecessary pieces, clarify, simplify, that sort of thing." Quoth frowned. "I don't think that will do." Chronicler gave him a shy smile. "Storytellers are always different. They prefer their stories to be left alone, but they also prefer an attentive audience. I usually listen and record later. I have a nearly perfect memory." No worries, Lily. Enjoy your sleep. Rest well, okay? "Nearly perfect doesn't quite suit me." Quoth pressed a finger against his lips. "How fast can you write?" Chronicler gave a knowing smile. "Faster than a man can talk." Quoth raised an eyebrow. "I'd like to see that." Chronicler opened his satchel. He brought out a stack of fine white paper and a bottle of ink. After arranging them carefully, he dipped a pen and looked expectantly at Quoth. Quoth sat forward in his chair and spoke quickly. "I am, we are, she is, he was, they will be." Chronicler's pen danced and scratched down the page as Quoth watched it. "I, Chronicler, do hereby vow that I can neither read nor write. Supine, irreverent, jackdaw, quartz, lacquer, egoliant, lintalu soren hea." There was a young widow from Phaeton whose morals were hard as a rock. She went to confession for her true obsession. Both leaned forward to watch as Chronicler wrote. "Interesting. Oh, you may stop." Chronicler smiled again and wiped his pen on a piece of cloth. The page in front of him held a single line of incomprehensible symbols. "Some sort of cipher?" Quoth wondered aloud. "Very neatly done, too. I'll bet you don't spoil many pages." He turned the sheet to look at the writing more carefully. "I never spoil pages," Chronicler said haughtily. Quoth nodded without looking up. "What does egoliant mean?" Chronicler asked. "Oh, nothing. I made it up. I wanted to see if an unfamiliar word would slow you down." He stretched and pulled his chair closer to Chronicler's. "As soon as you show me how to read this, we can begin." Chronicler looked doubtful. "It's very complex." Seeing Quoth frown, he sighed. "I'll try." Chronicler drew a deep breath and began to write a line of symbols as he spoke. "There are around 50 different sounds we use to speak. I've given each of them a symbol consisting of 1 or 2 pen strokes. It's all sound. I could conceivably transcribe a language I don't even understand. He pointed. These are different vowel sounds. All vertical lines, Quoth said, looking intently at the page. Chronicler paused, thrown off his stride. Well, yes. The consonants would be horizontal then, and they would combine like this. Taking the pen, Quoth made a few marks of his own on the page. Clever. You'd never need more than 2 or 3 for a word. Chronicler watched Quoth quietly. Quoth didn't notice his attention on the paper. If this is am, then these must be the ah sounds, he motioned to the group of characters Chronicler had penned. Ah, ah. That would make these the O's. Quoth nodded to himself and pressed the pen back into Chronicler's hand. Show me the consonants. Chronicler penned them down numbly, reciting the sounds as he wrote. After a moment, Quoth took the pen and completed the list himself, asking the dumbfounded Chronicler to correct him if he made a mistake. Chronicler watched and listened as Quoth completed the list. From beginning to end, the whole process took about 15 minutes. He made no mistakes. Wonderfully efficient system, Quoth said appreciatively. Very logical. Did you design it yourself? Chronicler took a long moment before he spoke, staring at the rows of characters on the page in front of Quoth. Finally, disregarding Quoth's question, Chronicler asked, Did you really learn Tema in a day? Quoth gave a faint smile and looked down at the table. That's an old story. I'd almost forgotten. It took a day and a half, actually. A day and a half with no sleep. Why do you ask? I heard about it at the university. I never really believed it. He looked down at the page of his cipher in Quoth's neat handwriting. All of it? Quoth looked puzzled. What? Did you learn the whole language? No, of course not, Quoth said rather testily. Only a portion of it. A large portion, to be sure, but I don't believe you can ever learn all of anything, let alone a language. Quoth rubbed his hands together. Now, are you ready? Chronicler shook his head as if to clear it, set out a new sheet of paper, and nodded. Quoth held up a hand to keep Chronicler from writing and spoke. I've never told this story before, and I doubt I'll ever tell it again. Quoth leaned forward in his chair. Before we begin, you must remember that I am of the Edimaru. We were telling stories before Kalaptena burned, before there were books to write in, before there was music to play. When the first fire kindled, we were there spinning stories in the circle of its flickering light. The innkeeper nodded to the scribe. I know your reputation as a great collector of stories and recorder of events. Quoth's eyes became hard as flint, sharp as broken glass. That said, do not presume to change a word of what I say. If I seem to wander, if I seem to stray, remember that true stories seldom take the straightest way. Chronicler nodded solemnly, trying to imagine the mind that could break apart his cipher in a piece of an hour. A mind that could learn a language in a day. Quoth gave a gentle smile and looked around the room as if fixing it in his memory. Chronicler dipped his pen, and Quoth looked down at his folded hands for as long as it takes to draw 3 deep breaths. Then he began to speak. In some ways, it began when I heard her singing, her voice twinning, mixing with my own. Her voice was like a portrait of her soul, wild as a fire, sharp as shattered glass, sweet and clean as clover. Quoth shook his head. No. It began at the university. I went to learn magic of the sort they talk about in stories. Magic like Taborlin the Great. I wanted to learn the name of the wind. I wanted fire and lightning. I wanted answers to 10,000 questions and access to their archives. But what I found at the university was much different than a story, and I was much dismayed. But I expect the true beginning lies in what led me to the university. Unexpected fires at twilight. A man with eyes like ice at the bottom of a well. The smell of blood and burning hair. The Chandrian. He nodded to himself. Yes, I suppose that is where it all begins. This is, in many ways, a story about the Chandrian. Kvothe shook his head as if to free himself from some dark thought. But I suppose I must go even further back than that. If this is to be something resembling my book of deeds, I can spare the time. It will be worth it, if I am remembered, if not flatteringly. Then at least with some small amount of accuracy. But what would my father say if he heard me telling a story this way? Begin at the beginning. Very well. If we are to have a telling, let's make it a proper one. Kvothe sat forward in his chair. In the beginning, as far as I know, the world was spun out of the nameless void by Aleph, who gave everything a name. Or, depending on the version of the tale, found the names all things already possessed. Chronicler let slip a small laugh, though he did not look up from his page or pause in his writing. Kvothe continued, smiling himself. I see you laugh. Very well. For simplicity's sake, let us assume I am the center of creation. In doing this, let us pass over innumerable boring stories, the rise and fall of empires, sagas of heroism, ballads of tragic love. Let us hurry forward to the only tale of any real importance. His smile broadened. Mine. My name is Kvothe, pronounced nearly the same as Quoth. Names are important as they tell you a great deal about a person. I've had more names than anyone has a right to. The Adem call me Maedre, which, depending on how it's spoken, can mean the flame, the thunder, or the broken tree. The flame is obvious if you've ever seen me. I have red hair, bright. If I had been born a couple 100 years ago, I would probably have been burned as a demon. I keep it short, but it's unruly. When left to its own devices, it sticks up and makes me look as if I've been set afire. The thunder I attribute to a strong baritone and a great deal of stage training at an early age. I've never thought of the broken tree as very significant, although in retrospect, I suppose it could be considered at least partially prophetic. My first mentor called me Ilir because I was clever and I knew it. My first real lover called me Dulator because she liked the sound of it. I have been called Shadikar, Lightfinger, and Sixth String. I have been called Kvothe the Bloodless, Kvothe the Arcane, and Kvothe King Killer. I have earned those names, bought and paid for them. But I was brought up as Kvothe. My father once told me it meant to know. I have, of course, been called many other things, most of them uncouth, although very few were unearned. I have stolen princesses back from sleeping Barrow kings. I burned down the town of Trebon. I have spent the night with Felurian and left with both my sanity and my life. I was expelled from the university at a younger age than most people are allowed in. I tread paths by moonlight that others fear to speak of during the day. I have talked to gods, loved women, and written songs that make the minstrels weep. You may have heard of me. Hey Z, what's going on, man? Welcome in. Hope you're doing well, bro. Right now we're reading Name of the Wind. My favorite book. And I'm very fucking excited. It's an interesting feeling to voice Kvothe. To give his character life. You know? But it's very enjoyable. That's for sure. Wow, can you hear me scratching my beard? Hey, Phantasm, welcome in. Interesting. Maybe I should use my Yeti for ASMR. You love Scruff? I have stubble. Just stubble. Chaos, you're not driving yet? Scratch bread? Are you only just hearing of this? I mean, IRL, if I don't have something on my face, I kind of look like an egg. If I had low enough body fat percentage, maybe I'd look fine with no facial hair, but as it stands right now, I'm closer to the average amount of body fat. So I think I look better with a little bit of stubble. It's not like it matters much in Japan anyways. I'm always wearing a face mask in public. You got a whole beard? Ooh. A couple years ago, actually almost 3 years ago now, I decided to see how much I could grow my beard out. And it got like a few inches long. But then I went to Japan, and I know they don't like beards there, so in my goofiness I shaved it off because I have no idea why. I don't know why I didn't just keep it. I know Japanese people don't love beards, but yeah, I just decided to just shave it off to fit in better, I guess. But I'm a tourist. It doesn't really matter. I was a tourist. It wouldn't really have mattered if I fit in or not, because I wasn't going to fit in regardless. But, you know, I did end up hooking up with someone while I was there. So maybe that wouldn't have happened if I still had my beard. You never know. Beautiful stubbly egg. Oh my god. You're cute. Alright, shall we continue? Chapter 8. Thieves, Heretics, and Whores. If this story is to be something resembling my book of deeds, we must begin at the beginning, at the heart of who I truly am. To do this, you must remember that before I was anything else, I was one of the Adimaru. Contrary to popular belief, not all traveling performers are of the Ru. My troupe was not some poor batch of mummers, japing at crossroads for pennies, singing for our suppers. We were court performers, Lord Greyfellow's men. Our arrival in most towns was more of an event than the midwinter pageantry and Selenade games rolled together. There were usually at least 8 wagons in our troupe, and well over 24 performers. Actors and acrobats, musicians and hand magicians, jugglers and jesters. My family. Hi, Annie. My father was a better actor and musician than any you have ever seen. My mother had a natural gift for words. They were both beautiful, with dark hair and easy laughter. They were rude down to their bones, and that really is all that needs to be said. Save perhaps that my mother was a noble before she was a trooper. She told me that my father had lured her away from a miserable, dreary hell with sweet music and sweeter words. I could only assume she meant 3 crossings, where we went to visit relatives when I was very young. Once. My parents were never really married, by which I mean they never brokered or they never bothered making the relationship official with any church. I'm not embarrassed by the fact. They considered themselves married and didn't see much point in announcing it to any government or God. I respect that. In truth, they seemed more content and faithful than many official married couples I have seen since. Our patron was Baron Greyfellow, and his name opened many doors that would ordinarily be closed to the Adimaru. In return, we wore his colors, green and gray, and added to his reputation wherever we went. Once a year, we spent 2 span at his manor, entertaining him and his household. It was a happy childhood, growing up in the center of an endless fair. My father would read to me from the great monologues during the long wagon rides between town. Reciting mostly from memory, his voice would roll down the road for a quarter-mile. I remember reading along, coming in on the secondary parts. My father would encourage me to try particularly good sections myself, and I learned to love the feel of good words. My mother and I would make up songs together. Other times, my parents would act out romantic dialogues while I followed along in the books. They seemed like games at the time. Little did I know how cunningly I was being taught. Hey, Hyoid, welcome in. And Gallows, thanks for hanging out today. Have a great night, okay? Yeah, Hyoid, I'm live around this time every week. I was a curious child, quick with questions and eager to learn. With acrobats and actors as my teachers, it is little wonder that I never grew to dread lessons as most children do. The roads were safer in those days, but cautious folk would still travel with our troop for safety's sake. They supplemented my education. I learned an eclectic smattering of Commonwealth law from a traveling barrister too drunk or too pompous to realize he was lecturing an 8-year-old. I learned woodcraft from a huntsman named Lacklith, who traveled with us for nearly a whole season. I learned the sordid inner workings of the royal court in Modeg from a courtesan. As my father used to say, call a jack, call a spade, but always call a whore a lady. Their lives are hard enough, and it never hurts to be polite. Hetera smelled vaguely of cinnamon, and at 9 years old I found her fascinating without exactly knowing why. She taught me I should never do anything in private that I didn't want talked about in public, and cautioned me to not talk in my sleep. And then there was Abinthy, my first real teacher. He taught me more than all the others set end to end. If not for him, I would never have become the man I am today. And I ask that you not hold it against him. He meant well. You'll have to move along, the mayor said. Camp outside town and no one will bother you so long as you don't start any fights or wander off with anything that isn't yours. He gave my father a significant look. Then be on your merry way tomorrow. No performances. They're more trouble than they're worth. We are licensed, my father said, pulling out a folded piece of parchment from the inner pocket of his jacket. Charged to perform, in fact. The mayor shook his head and made no motion to look at our writ of patronage. It makes folks rowdy, he said firmly. Last time there was an unholy row during the play. Too much drinking, too much excitement. Folks tore the doors off the public house and smashed up the tables. The hall belongs to the town, you see. The town bears the expense of the repairs. By this time our wagons were drawing attention. Trip was doing some juggling. Marion and his wife were putting on an impromptu string puppet show. I was watching my father from the back of our wagon. "We certainly would not want to offend you or your patron," the mayor said. "However, the town can ill afford another evening such as that. As a gesture of goodwill, I'm willing to offer you a copper each, say 20 pennies, simply to be on your way and not make any trouble for us here." Now, you have to understand that 20 pennies might be a good bit of money for some little ragamuffin troupe living hand to mouth. But for us, it was simply insulting. He should have offered us 40 to play for the evening, free use of the public hall, a good meal, and beds at the inn. The last we would graciously decline, as the beds were no doubt lousy, and those in our wagons were not. If my father was surprised or insulted, he did not show it. "Pack up," he shouted over one shoulder. Trip tucked his juggling stones into various pockets without so much as a flourish. There was a disappointed chorus from several dozen townsfolk as the puppets stopped mid-jape and were packed away. The mayor looked relieved, brought out his purse, and pulled out 2 silver pennies. "I'll be sure to tell the Baron of your generosity," my father said carefully as the mayor laid the pennies into his hand. The mayor froze mid-motion. "Baron?" "Baron Greyfellow." My father paused, looking for some spark of recognition on the mayor's face. "Lord of the Eastern Marshes, Hudumbrand by Theron, and the Wideconte Hills." My father looked around the horizon. "We are still in the Wideconte Hills, aren't we?" "Well, yes," the mayor said. "But Squire Semelin—" "Oh, we're in Semelin's fief," my father exclaimed, looking around as if just now getting his bearings. "Thin gentleman, tidy little beard?" He brushed his chin with his fingers. The mayor nodded numbly. "Charming fellow, lovely singing voice. Met him while we were entertaining the Baron last midwinter." "Of course," the mayor paused significantly. "Might I see your writ?" I watched as the mayor read it. It took him a little while, as my father had not bothered to mention the majority of the Baron's titles, such as the Viscount of Montrone and the Lord of Trelliston. The upshot was this. It was true that the Squire Semelin controlled this little town and all the land around it, but Semelin owed fealty directly to Greyfellow. In more concrete terms, Greyfellow was captain of the ship. Semelin scrubbed the planking and saluted him. The mayor refolded the parchment and handed it back to my father. "I see." That was all. I remember being stunned when the mayor didn't apologize or offer my father more money. My father paused as well, then continued. "The city is your jurisdiction, sir, but we'll perform either way. It will either be here or just outside the city limits." "You can't use the public house," the mayor said firmly. "I won't have it wrecked again." "We can play right here," my father pointed to the market square. "It will be enough space, and it keeps everyone right here in town." The mayor hesitated, though I could hardly believe it. We sometimes chose to play on the green because the local buildings weren't big enough. 2 of our wagons were built to become stages for just that eventuality. But in my whole 11 years of memory, I could barely count on both hands the times we've been forced to play on the green. We had never played outside the city limits. But we were spared that. The mayor nodded at last and gestured my father closer. I slipped out the back of the wagon and moved close enough to catch the end of what he said. "God-fearing folk around here. Nothing vulgar or heretical. We had a double handful of trouble with the last troop that came through here. 2 fights, folk missing their laundry, and one of the Beanston's daughters got herself in a family way." I was outraged. I waited for my father to show the mayor the sharp side of his tongue, to explain the difference between mere traveling performers and Idi Maru. We didn't steal. We would never let things go so out of control that a bunch of drunks ruined the hall where we were playing. But my father did nothing of the sort. He just nodded and walked back toward our wagon. He gestured, and Trip started juggling again. The puppets reemerged from their cases. As he came around the wagon, he saw me standing, half hidden beside the horses. I'm guessing you heard the whole thing from the look on your face, he said with a wry grin. Let it go, my boy. He gets full marks for honesty, if not for grace. He just says out loud what other folk keep in the quiet of their hearts. Why do you think I have everyone stay in pairs when we go about our business in bigger towns? I knew it for the truth. Still, it was a hard pill for a young boy to swallow. 20 pennies, I said scathingly, as if you were offering us charity. That was the hardest part of growing up at Imaru. We are strangers everywhere. Many folk view us as vagabonds and beggars, while others deem us little more than thieves, heretics, and whores. It's hard to be wrongfully accused, but it's worse when the people looking down on you are clods who had never read a book or traveled more than 20 miles from the place they were born. My father laughed and ruffed my hair. Just pity him, my boy. Tomorrow we'll be on our way, but he'll have to keep his own disagreeable company until the day he dies. He's an ignorant blatherskate, I said bitterly. He lay a firm hand on my shoulder, letting me know I'd said enough. This is what comes of getting too close to Atur, I suppose. Tomorrow we'll head south. Greener pastures, kinder folk, prettier women. He cupped an ear toward the wagon and nudged me with his elbow. I can hear everything you say, my mother called sweetly from inside. My father grinned and winked at me. So, what play are we going to do? I asked my father. Nothing vulgar, mind you. They're God-fearing folk in these parts. He looked at me. What would you pick? Thanks for looking, Chi-Chi. I gave it a long moment's thought. I'd play something from the Brightfield cycle, The Forging of the Path or some such. My father made a face. Not a very good play. I shrugged. They won't know the difference. Besides, it's chock full of Telu, so no one will complain about it being vulgar. I looked up at the sky. I just hope it doesn't rain on us halfway through. My father looked up at the clouds. It will. Still, there are worse things than playing in the rain. Like playing in the rain and getting shimmed on the deal? I asked. The mayor hurried up to us, moving at a fast walk. There was a thin sheen of sweat on his forehead, and he was puffing a little bit, as if he'd been running. I talked it over with a few members of the council, and we decided that it would be quite all right for you to use the public house if you would care to. My father's body language was perfect. It was perfectly clear he was offended, but far too polite to say anything. I certainly wouldn't want to put you out. No bother at all. I insist, in fact. Very well, if you insist. The mayor smiled and hurried away. Well, that's a little better, my father sighed. No need to tighten our belts yet. Hello, Plaxi. Welcome. Let me take a sip quick. Half penny a head. That's right. Anyone without a head gets in free. Thank you, sir. Trip was working the door, making sure everyone paid to see the play. Half penny a head. Though by the rosy glow in your lady's cheeks, I should be charging you for a head and a half. Not that it's any of my business, mind you. Trip had the quickest tongue of anyone in the troupe, which made him the best man for the job of making sure no one tried to fast talk or bully their way inside. Wearing his green and gray jester's motley, Trip could say just about anything and get away with it. Hello, Mum. No charge for the little one, but if he starts to squawk, you'd best give him the tit quick or take him outside. Trip carried on his unending patter. That's right, half a penny. Yes, sir, empty head still pays full price. Though it was always fun to watch Trip work, most of my attention was on a wagon that had rolled onto the other end of town about a quarter hour ago. The mayor had argued with the old man driving it, then stormed off. Now I saw the mayor heading back to the wagon accompanied by a tall fellow carrying a long cudgel, the constable, unless I missed my guess. My curiosity got the best of me, and I made my way toward the wagon, doing my best to stay out of sight. The mayor and the old man were arguing again by the time I got close enough to hear. The constable stood nearby, looking irritated and anxious. Told you, I don't have a license. I don't need a license. Does a peddler need a license? Does a tinker need a license? Oh, wait. Told you, I don't have a license. I don't need a license. Does a peddler need a license? Does a tinker need a license? You're not a tinker, the mayor said. Don't try to pass yourself off as one. I'm not trying to pass myself off as anything, the old man snapped. I'm a tinker and a peddler, and I'm more than both. I'm an arcanist, you great dithering heap of idiot. My point exactly, the mayor said doggedly. We're God-fearing people in these parts. We don't want any meddling with dark things better left alone. We don't want the trouble your kind can bring. My kind? The old man said. What do you know about my kind? There probably hasn't been an arcanist through these parts in 50 years. We like it that way. Just turn around and go back the way you came. Like hell if I'm spending a night in the rain because of your thick head, the old man said hotly. I don't need your permission to rent a room or do business in the street. Now get away from me or I'll show you firsthand what sort of trouble my kind can be. Hi, Kaya. Welcome. Fear flashed across the mayor's face before it was overwhelmed by outrage. He gestured over one shoulder at the constable. Then you'll need to spend a night in jail for vagrancy and threatening behavior. We'll let you on your way in the morning if you've learned to keep a civil tongue in your head. The constable advanced on the wagon, his cudgel held cautiously at his side. The old man stood his ground and raised one hand. A deep red light welled up from the front corners of his wagon. That's far enough, he said ominously. Things could get ugly otherwise. After a moment's surprise, I realized the strange light came from a pair of sympathy lamps the old man had mounted on his wagon. I had seen one before in Lord Greyfellow's library. They were brighter than gaslight, steadier than candles or lamps, and lasted nearly forever. They were also terribly expensive. I was willing to bet that no one in this little town had ever heard of them, let alone seen one. The constable stopped in his tracks when the light began to swell. But when nothing else seemed to happen, he set his jaw and kept walking toward the wagon. The old man's expression grew anxious. Now, hold on a moment, he said as the red light from the wagon started to fade. We don't want... Shut your klepper, you old shitfire, the constable said. He snatched at the arcanist's arm as if he were sticking his hand into an oven. Then, when nothing happened, he smiled and grew more confident. Don't think I won't knock you a good one to keep you from working any more of your devilry. Well done, Tom, the mayor said, radiating relief. Bring him along and we'll send someone back for the wagon. The constable grinned and twisted the old man's arm. The arcanist bent at the waist and gasped a short, painful breath. From where I hid, I saw the arcanist's face change from anxious to pained to angry, all in 1 second. I saw his mouth move. A furious gust of wind came out of nowhere, as if a storm had suddenly burst with no warning. The wind struck the old man's wagon and it tipped onto 2 wheels before slamming back down onto 4. The constable staggered and fell as if he had been struck by the hand of God. Even where I hid nearly 30 feet away, the wind was so strong that I was forced to take a step forward, as if I'd been pushed roughly from behind. Begone! The old man shouted angrily. Trouble me no longer. I will set fire to your blood and fill you with a fear like ice and iron. There was something familiar about his words, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Both the mayor and the constable turned tail and ran, their eyes white and wild as startled horses. The wind faded as quickly as it had come. The whole sudden burst couldn't have lasted more than 5 seconds. As most of the townfolk were gathered around the public house, I doubted anyone had seen it except for me, the mayor, the constable, and the old man's donkeys who stood placidly in their harness, utterly unperturbed. Leave this place clean of your foul presence, the arcane muttered to himself as he watched them go. The arcanist muttered to himself as he watched them go. By the power of the name, I command it to be so. I finally realized why his words seemed so familiar. He was quoting lines from the exorcism scene in Deonica. Not many folk knew that play. The old man turned back to his wagon and began to extemporize. I'll turn you into butter on a summer day. I'll turn you into a poet with the soul of a priest. I'll fill you with lemon custard and push you out a window. He spat. Bastards. His irritation seemed to leave him as he heaved a great, weary sigh. Well, that couldn't have gone much worse, the old man muttered, as he rubbed at the shoulder of the arm the constable had twisted. Do you think they'll come back with a mob behind them? For a second, I thought the old man was talking to me. Then I realized the truth. He was talking to his donkeys. I don't think so either, he said to them. But I've been wrong before. Let's stay near the edge of town and have a look at the last of the oats, shall we? He clambered up into the back of the wagon and came down with a wide bucket and a nearly empty burlap sack. He upended the sack into the bucket and seemed disheartened by the results. He took out a handful for himself before nudging the bucket toward the donkeys with his foot. Don't give me that look, he said to them. It's short rations all around. Besides, you can graze. He petted one donkey while he ate his handful of rough oats, stopping occasionally to spit out a husk. It struck me as very sad, this old man all alone on the road with no one to talk to but his donkeys. It's hard for us, Edimaru, but at least we had each other. This man had no one. We've wandered too far from civilization, boys. The folk that need me don't trust me, and the ones that trust me can't afford me. The old man peered into his purse. We've got a penny and a half, so our options are limited. Do we want to be wet tonight or hungry tomorrow? We're not going to do any business, so it'll probably be one or the other. I slunk around the edge of the building until I could see what was written on the side of the old man's wagon. It read, Abinthy, Arcanist Extraordinary, Scribe, Dowser, Chemist, Dentist, Rare Goods, all ailments tended, no lost items found, anything mended, no horoscopes, no love potions, no malefaction. Abinthy noticed me as soon as I stepped out from behind the building, where I'd been hiding. Hello there. Can I help you? You've misspelled ailments, I pointed out. He looked surprised. It's a joke, actually, he explained. I brew a bit. Oh, ale, I said, nodding. I get it. I brought my hand out of my pocket. Can you sell me anything for a penny? He seemed stuck between amusement and curiosity. What are you looking for? I'd like some Lucilium. We had performed Fair in the Fair a dozen times in the last month, and it had filled my young mind with intrigue and assassination. Are you expecting someone to poison you? He said, somewhat taken aback. Not really, but it seems to me that if you wait around until you know you need an antidote, it's probably too late to pick one up. I suppose I could sell you a penny's worth, he said. That would be about a dose for a person your size, but it's dangerous stuff in its own right. It only cures certain poisons. You can hurt yourself if you take it at the wrong time. Oh, I said. I didn't know that. In the play, it was touted as an infallible cure-all. Abinthy tapped his lips thoughtfully. Can you answer me a question in the meantime? I nodded. Whose troop is that? In a way, it's mine, I said. But in another way, it's my father's because he runs the show and points which way the wagons go. But it's Baron Greyfellow's too, because he's our patron. We're Lord Greyfellow's men. The old man gave me an amused look. I've heard of you. Oh, I've heard of you. Good troop, good reputation. I nodded, not seeing any point in false modesty. Do you think your father might be interested in taking on any help? He asked. I don't claim to be much of an actor, but I'm handy to have around. I could make you face paint and rouge that aren't all full of lead and mercury and arsenic. I can do lights too. Quick, clean, and bright. Different colors if you want 'em. I didn't have to think too hard about it. Candles were expensive and vulnerable to drafts. Torches were dirty and dangerous. And everyone in the troupe learned the dangers of cosmetics at an early age. It was hard to become an old, seasoned trooper when you painted poison on yourself every third day and ended up raving mad by the time you were 25. I may be overstepping myself a little, I said as I held out my hand for him to shake. But let me be the first to welcome you to the troupe. If this is to be a full and honest account of my life and deeds, I feel I should mention that my reasons for inviting Ben into our troupe were not entirely altruistic. Thank you for the head rub, Pixie. Good luck to you. It's true that quality cosmetics and clean light were a welcomed addition to our troupe. It's also true that I'd felt sorry for the old man alone on the road. But underneath it all, I was moved by my curiosity. I had seen Abinthy do something I could not explain, something strange and wonderful. Not his trick with the sympathy lamps. I recognized that for what it was, showmanship, a bluff to impress ignorant townsfolk. What he had done afterward was different. He called the wind, and the wind came. It was magic. Real magic. The sort of magic I'd heard about in stories of Taborlin the Great. The sort of magic I hadn't believed in since I was 6. Now I didn't know what to believe. So, I invited him into our troupe, hoping to find answers to my questions. Though I didn't know it at the time, I was looking for the name of the wind. Hello, Sonny. Welcome in. My voice is magic. Chaos. Oh my god, you are so fucking adorable. I can't. You guys liking the book so far? But you can? Oh my god. Sorry, I just popped into the mic. Love to hear Grandpa Mido getting some time to shine. You like the different voices? Oh, I'm glad, I'm glad. I feel like it's good practice for me. Alright, shall we continue? Let me take another sip. Oh my goodness, whoa. I sound so close right here. It's like I'm whispering in your ear. Do you like it when I whisper in your ear like this? I could tell you all sorts of things that I'm sure you would love to hear. And it feels so close to you. This is helping you out so much. Oh, cute girl. I'm glad. Helping you with what? I can't imagine. Give you kisses? You want some kisses, guys? Relax for me, cute girl. Relax, relax. Relax for me. Close your eyes. Succumb to my voice. Let me whisper in your ear. Mm. You don't have to thank me, you just have to be here and enjoy it. That's all I want. Medical terminology. That sounds intense. Good luck, Kaya. Oh, Pixie. Yes. Relax, relax, Pixie. I hope you don't mind me being so close to you. It's just you're so damn cute, I can't stay away. I want my body, my mouth as close to you as possible. It feels so nice to be right up against you, to be right here with you, like nothing else matters. You feel like you're actually gonna fall asleep? Rest your head on my chest, cute girl. Close your eyes. Feel your body relax, your muscles lose tension. Hi, Pookie. I love seeing your reactions to me. So shy, but wanting more. So damn cute, Jen. You're so fucking adorable. You can't handle this? That's okay. I can. I can handle you just fine, Pookie. You want me to stretch? I can do that. Oh. 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 That was my sternum. Oh, you should not be worried. That felt really nice. Felt really good. I love you guys. Thank you for lurking, Nanner. Chaos, thank you for the 2-month resub. You're so damn cute. Thank you. It sounded like the best stretch. It felt like the best stretch. I would love a massage. I would love a massage, please. Come here. Put your hands on me. Work the tension out of my muscles. I would love that so much. see some cuties chilling in VC together. Yeah, I caught you, Moo. See? I thought Nate was at work. Or was that yesterday? No, that was yesterday. That was yesterday. Scattered? No, stay right there. I like seeing you hang out together. Alright, shall we continue? What do you guys think? Hey, Nixie. You're too high for this right now? Oh, you're gonna leave already? Nixie, come here. Let me get close to you. Curl up next to me. Let me keep you warm. Who do I think you are? I don't know who I think you are, but I think I know why you're here. So let me give you exactly what you want, baby. You're staying here? Good girl. I really need a pop emote, don't I? Maybe I'll commission one from Renry. She seems to do a really good job with animated emotes. Opinion on Ohio? Who the fuck lives in Ohio? Ohio is better as a good morning greeting in Japanese. Hi Jay, welcome in, welcome in. I'm joking, of course. Cleveland, I've heard, is pretty cool, right? Hello, Volcanix. Welcome in, welcome in. Thanks for lurking, Moo. I appreciate you. I'm sorry, Jay. I've never been to Ohio. I've never had a good reason to go to Ohio. I've heard the Super Smash Bros. Scene is pretty good in Ohio, though. You used to live in Ohio, but then you moved? What did you think of it, MB? I may take a short moment to use the bathroom and grab a snack quick. It was not the best? Ohio is just one of those places that you don't really hear of much, right? Your thighs almost snapped your earphones. Aw. Ohio isn't that bad, depending on where you are. I see, I see. Nate. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the powerhouse. That's fucking hilarious, man. What about Detroit? Detroit's in Michigan, no? I've never heard of Detroit, but Wait, I've never been to Detroit. Did I say I've never heard of Detroit? I've never been to Detroit. I have heard of Detroit, but I've heard it's a little bit iffy. Heard it's a little violent, perhaps. I've heard you can't have shit in Detroit. Can't have nothing in Detroit, yeah. Alright, I'm gonna go pee. I'm gonna go grab a snack. I'll be back in just a bit. Mwah. Give me like a couple minutes. I'll be right back. Yes, I'm from the USA, but I live in Japan right now. You guys are so damn cute. I can't take it. All these hearts. Oh my goodness. See, is this you're doing again? I love you guys so much. You're the fucking best. I got some macaroni salad. Thank you for the bits, Jay. Hydrate? I can do that. I'm gonna stay in the screen while I eat. I'm also gonna try to not put too many chewing sounds through the microphone. Alright, see you later, Big Tit Nana. Keep those titties swanging for me. Okay. Food has been consumed. Let me top off my water. Water? Ew, water? Nixie, what do you mean? Hello? Water is amazing. Water is fantastic. Water's where it's at. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yay, rum. Chaos, you are driving. Dr. Pepper and Sprite? Ew. No. No, 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 Nixie. No, no, no. Water. Water, water, water. We're hydro homies here. Yeah, Chaos is here. Yes, yes. Water yummy. Yes. Water is very good. You've been home for an hour? Oh, I thought you said you had a long drive. I figured you'd be driving throughout the stream. You're not driving? Okay, okay, okay. I'm sorry. Alright, Annie, get some rest, okay? I hope you sleep well. Dream about me. Thank you for the head rub, Jay. Good luck to you. It was like 25 minutes. Oh. I don't know why I thought you had said that it would be a long drive. But you know, I'm glad that it's that you got home safely. I'm very glad. Alright, friends. Are you all ready to continue the story? Shall we? Let me like properly clear my throat. Yo, Dark, what's going on? Okay. There we go. Chapter 9. Riding in the Wagon with Ben. Abinthy was the first Arcanist I had ever met. A strange, exciting figure to a young boy. He was knowledgeable in all the sciences: botany, astronomy, psychology, anatomy, alchemy, geology, chemistry. Thank you for the 20 bits, B. He was portly, with twinkling eyes that moved quickly from one thing to another. He had a strip of dark gray hair running around the back of his head, but, and this is what I remember most about him, no eyebrows. I just realized I had my mic on the wrong setting this whole time. There's probably a little bit less background noise now. Yeah? Yeah, a little bit less. That's good. That's good. Okay. Rather, he had them, but they were in a perpetual state of regrowing from being burned off in the course of his alchemical pursuits. It made him look surprised and quizzical, all at once. He spoke gently, laughed often, and never exercised his wit at the expense of others. He cursed like a drunken sailor with a broken leg, but only at his donkeys. They were called Alpha and Beta, and Abinthy fed them carrots and lumps of sugar when he thought no one was looking. Chemistry was his particular love, and my father said he'd never known a man to run a better still. By his second day in our troop, I was making a habit of riding in his wagon. I would ask him questions, and he would answer. Then he would ask for songs, and I would pluck them out for him on a lute I borrowed from my father's wagon. He would even sing from time to time. He had a bright, reckless tenor that was always wandering off, looking for notes in the wrong places. More often than not, he stopped and laughed at himself when it happened. He was a good man, and there was no conceit in him. Not long after he joined our troop, I asked Abinthy what it was like being an Arcanist. He gave me a thoughtful look. "Have you ever known an Arcanist?" "We paid one to mend a cracked axe on the road once." I paused to think. "He was heading inland with a caravan of fish." Abinthy made a dismissive gesture. No, boy. I'm talking about Arcanists, not some poor chill charmer who works his way back and forth across caravan routes trying to keep fresh meat from rotting." "What's the difference?" I asked, sensing it was expected of me. "Well," he said, "that might take a bit of explaining." "I've got nothing but time." Abinthy gave me an appraising look. I'd been waiting for it. It was the look that said, "You don't sound as young as you look." I hoped he'd come to grips with it fairly soon. It gets tiresome being spoken to as if you were a child, even if you happen to be one. He took a deep breath. "Just because someone knows a trick or two doesn't mean they're an Arcanist. They might know how to set a bone or read Elvintic. Maybe they even know a little sympathy. But..." "Sympathy?" I interrupted as politely as possible. "You'd probably call it magic," Abinthy said reluctantly. "It's not really." He shrugged. "But even knowing sympathy doesn't make you an Arcanist. A true Arcanist has worked his way through the Arcanum at the university." At his mention of the Arcanum, I bristled with 24 new questions. Not so many, you might think. But when you added them to the 100 questions I carried with me wherever I went, I was stretched nearly to bursting. Only through a severe effort of will did I remain silent, waiting for Abinthy to continue on his own. Abinthy, however, noticed my reaction. "So, you've heard of the Arcanum, have you?" He seemed amused. "Tell me what you've heard, then." This small prompt was all the excuse I needed. "I heard from a boy in Temper Glen that if your arm's cut off, they can sew it back on at the university." "Can they really? Some stories say Taborlin the Great went there to learn the names of all things. There's a library with 1,000 books. Are there really that many?" He answered the last question, the others having rushed by too quickly for him to respond. "More than 1,000, actually. 10 times 10,000 books. More than that. More books than you could ever read." Abinthy's voice grew vaguely wistful, then continued. More books than I could read?" Somehow I doubted that. Ben continued. "The people you see riding with caravans, charmers who keep food from spoiling, dowsers, fortune tellers, toad eaters. aren't real Arcanists any more than all traveling performers are Idi Maru. They might know a little alchemy, a little sympathy, a little medicine. He shook his head. But they're not Arcanists. A lot of people pretend to be. They wear robes and put on airs to take advantage of the ignorant and gullible. But here's how you can tell a true Arcanist. Abinthy pulled a fine chain over his head and handed it to me. It was the first time I had ever seen an Arcanum Gilder. It looked rather unimpressive, just a flat piece of lead with some unfamiliar writing stamped on it. That is a true Glythe, or Gilder if you prefer, Abinthy explained with some satisfaction. It's the only sure way to be certain of who is and who isn't an Arcanist. Your father asked to see mine before he let me ride with your troop. It shows he's a man of the world. He watched me with a sly disinterest. Uncomfortable, isn't it? I gritted my teeth and nodded. My hand had gone numb as soon as I'd touched it. I was curious to study the markings on its front and back, but after the space of 2 breaths, my arm was numb to the shoulder, as if I had slept on it all night. I wondered if my whole body would go numb if I held it long enough. I was prevented from finding out as the wagon hit a bump and my numbed hand almost let Abinthy's Gilder fall to the footboard of the wagon. He snatched it up and slipped it back over his head, chuckling. How can you stand it? I asked, trying to rub a little feeling back into my hand. It only feels that way to other people, he explained. To its owner, it's just warm. That's how you can tell the difference between an Arcanist and someone who has a knack for finding water or guessing at the weather. Trip has something like that, I said. He rolls 7s. Hayakeki. That's a little different, Abinthy laughed. Not everything so unexplainable as a knack. Or not anything so unexplainable as a knack. He slouched a little farther down into his seat. Probably for the best. A couple 100 years ago, a person was good as dead if folks saw he had a knack. The Tellins called them demon signs and burned folk if they had 'em. Abinthy's mood seemed to have taken a downward turn. We had to break Trip out of jail once or twice, I said, trying to lighten the tone of the conversation. But no one actually tried to burn him. Abinthy gave a tired smile. I suspect Trip has a pair of clever dice or an equally clever skill which probably extends to cards as well. I thank you for your timely warning, but a knack is something else entirely. I can't abide being patronized. Trip can't cheat to save his life, I said a little more sharply than I had intended. And anyone in the troop can tell good dice from bad. Trip throws 7s. It doesn't matter whose dice he uses, he rolls 7s. If he bets on someone, they roll 7s. If he so much as bumps a table with loose dice on it, 7. Abinthy nodded to himself. My apologies, that does sound like a knack. I'd be curious to see it. I nodded. Take your own dice. We haven't let him play for years. A thought occurred to me. It might not still work. He shrugged. Knacks don't go away so easily as that. When I was growing up in Staup, I knew a young man with a knack. Uncommonly good with plants. Abinthy's grin was gone as he looked off at something I couldn't see. His tomatoes would be red while everyone else's vines were still climbing. His squash were bigger and sweeter. His grapes didn't hardly have to be bottled before they started to become wine. He trailed off, his eyes far away. Did they burn him? I asked with the morbid curiosity of the young. What? Of course not. I'm not that old. He scowled at me in mock severity. There was a drought and he got run out of town. His poor mother was heartbroken. There was a moment of silence. 2 wagons ahead of us, I heard Taryn and Shandy rehearsing lines from the Swineherd and the Nightingale. Abinthy seemed to be listening as well, in an offhand way. After Taryn got himself lost halfway through Fane's garden monologue, I turned back to face him. Do they teach acting at the university? I asked. Abinthy shook his head, slightly amused by the question. Many things, but not that. I looked over at Abinthy and saw him watching me, his eyes dancing. Could you teach me some of those other things? I asked. He smiled, and it was as easy as that. Abinthy proceeded to give me a brief overview of each of the sciences. While his main love was for chemistry, he believed in a rounded education. I learned how to work the sextant, the compass, the slipstick, the abacus. More important, I learned to do without. Within a span, I could identify any chemical in his cart. In 2 months, I could distill liquor until it was too strong to drink, bandage a wound, set a bone, and diagnose hundreds of sicknesses from symptoms. I knew the process for making 4 different aphrodisiacs, 3 concoctions for contraception, 9 for impotence, and 2 filters referred to simply as Maiden's Helper. Abinthy was rather vague about the purpose of the last of these, but I had some strong suspicions. I learned the formulae for 12 poisons and acids and 100 medicines and cure-alls, some of which even worked. I doubled my herb lore in theory, if not in practice. Abinthy started to call me Red, and I called him Ben, first in retaliation, then in friendship. Good night, B. It was nice having you. Only now, far after the fact, do I recognize how carefully Ben prepared me for what was to come at the university. He did it subtly. Once or twice a day, mixed in with my normal lectures, Ben would present me with little mental exercise I would have to master before we went on to anything else. He made me play Tirani without a board, keeping track of the stones in my head. Other times, he would stop in the middle of a conversation and make me repeat everything said in the last few minutes, word for word. This was levels beyond the simple memorization I'd practiced for the stage. My mind was learning to work in different ways, becoming stronger. It felt the same way your body feels after a day of splitting wood, or swimming, or sex. You feel exhausted, languorous, and almost godlike. This feeling was similar, except it was my intellect that was weary and expanded, languid and latently powerful. I could feel my mind starting to awaken. I seemed to gain momentum as I progressed, like when water starts to wash away a dam made of sand. I don't know if you understand what a geometric progression is, but that is the best way to describe it. Through it all, Ben continued to teach me the mental exercises that I was half convinced he constructed out of sheer meanness. Hey Kai, welcome in. Oh, I'm so excited to keep reading. I just want to keep going. This is such a good book. Chapter 10. Alar and Several Stones. Ben held up a chunk of dirty fieldstone, slightly bigger than his fist. What will happen if I let go of this rock? I thought for a bit. Simple questions during lesson time were very seldom simple. Finally, I gave the obvious answer. It will probably fall. He raised an eyebrow. I had kept him busy over the last several months, and he hadn't had the leisure to accidentally burn them off. Probably. You sound like a sophist, boy. Hasn't it always fallen before? I stuck my tongue out at him. Don't try to boldface your way through this one. That's a fallacy. You taught me that yourself. He grinned. Fine. Would it be fair to say you believe it will fall? Fair enough. I want you to believe it will fall up when I let go of it. His grin widened. I tried. It was like doing mental gymnastics. After a while, I nodded. Okay. How well do you believe it? Not very well, I admitted. I want you to believe this rock will float away. Believe it with a faith that will move mountains and shake trees. He paused and seemed to take a different tack. Do you believe in God? Telu? After a fashion. Not good enough. Do you believe in your parents? I gave a little smile. Sometimes. I can't see them right now. He snorted and unhooked the slapstick he used to go to Alpha and Beta when they were being lazy. Do you believe in this, Elir? He only called me Elir when he thought I was being especially willfully obstinate. He held out the stick for my inspection. There was a malicious glitter in his eye. I decided not to tempt fate. Yes. Good. He slapped the side of the wagon with it, producing a sharp crack. One of Alpha's ears pivoted around at the noise, uncertain as to whether or not it was directed at her. That's the sort of belief I want. It's called Alar, riding crop belief. When I drop this stone, it will float away, free as a bird. He brandished the slapstick a bit. And none of your petty philosophy, or I'll make you sorry you ever took a shining to that little game. I nodded. I cleared my mind with one of the tricks I'd already learned, and bore down on believing. I started to sweat. After what may have been 10 minutes, I nodded again. He let go of the rock. It fell. I began to get a headache. He picked the rock back up. Do you believe that it floated? No, I sulked, rubbing my temples. Good. It didn't. Never fool yourself into perceiving things that don't exist. It's a fine line to walk, but sympathy is not an art for the weak-willed. He held out the rock again. Do you believe it will float? It didn't. It doesn't matter. Try again. He shook the stone. Allah is the cornerstone of sympathy. If you're going to impose your will on the world, you must have control over what you believe. I tried and I tried. It was the most difficult thing I had ever done. It took me almost all afternoon. Hey Lara, welcome in. Finally, Ben was able to drop the rock, and I retained my firm belief that it wouldn't fall, despite evidence to the contrary. I heard the thump of the rock, and I looked at Ben. I've got it, I said calmly, feeling more than a little smug. He looked at me out of the corner of his eye, as if he didn't quite believe me, but didn't want to admit it. He picked at the rock absently with one fingernail, then shrugged and held it up again. I want you to believe the rock will fall, and that the rock will not fall when I let go of it. He grinned. I went to bed late that night. I had a nosebleed and a smile of satisfaction. I held the two separate beliefs loosely in my mind and let their singing discord lull me into senselessness. Hey, Luna CC, how you doing? Welcome in. Being able to think about two disparate things at once, aside from being wonderfully efficient, was roughly akin to being able to sing harmony with yourself. It turned into a favorite game of mine. After 2 days of practicing, I was able to sing a trio. Soon, I was doing the mental equivalent of palming cards and juggling knives. There were many other lessons, though none were quite so pivotal as the Alar. Ben taught me Heart of Stone, a mental exercise that let you set aside your emotions and prejudices and let you think clearly about whatever you wished. Ben said a man who truly mastered Heart of Stone could go to his sister's funeral without ever shedding a tear. He also taught me a game called Seek the Stone. The point of the game was to have one part of your mind hide an imaginary stone in an imaginary room. Then you had another, separate part of your mind to try to find it. Practically, it teaches valuable mental control. If you can really play Seek the Stone, then you are developing an iron heart Alar of the sort you need for sympathy. However, while being able to think about two things at the same time is terribly convenient, the training it takes to get there is frustrating at best, and at other times rather disturbing. I remember one time I looked for the stone for almost an hour before I consented to ask the other half of me where I hid it, where I'd hidden it, only to find I hadn't hidden the stone at all. I had merely been waiting to see how long I would look before giving up. Have you ever been annoyed and amused with yourself at the same time? It's an interesting feeling, to say the very least. Another time I asked for hints and ended up jeering at myself. It's no wonder that many arcanists you meet are a little eccentric, if not downright cracked. As Ben had said, sympathy is not for the weak of mind. Chapter 10 was a short one. We continue. Chapter 11. The Binding of Iron. I sat in the back of Abinthy's wagon. It was a wonderful place for me, home to 100 bottles and bundles, saturated with 1,000 smells. To my young mind, it was usually more fun than a tinker's cart, but not today. It had rained heavily the night before, and the road was a thick morass of mud. Since the troop was not on any particular schedule, we had decided to wait for a day or two to give the roads time to dry. It was a fairly common occurrence, and it happened to fall at the perfect time for Ben to further my education. So I sat at the wooden work table in the back of Ben's wagon and chafed at wasting the day listening to him lecture me about things I already understood. My thoughts must have been quite apparent because Abinthy sighed and sat down beside me. Not quite what you expected, eh? I relaxed a bit, knowing his tone meant a temporary reprieve from the lecture. He gathered up a handful of the iron drabs that were sitting on the table and clinked them together thoughtfully in his hand. He looked at me. Did you learn to juggle all at once? 5 balls at a time? Knives too? I flushed a bit at the memory. Trip hadn't even let me try 3 balls at first. He'd made me juggle 2. I'd even dropped them a couple of times. I told Ben so. Right, Ben said. Master this trick and you get to learn another. I expected him to stand up and start back into the lesson, but he didn't. Instead, he held out the handful of iron drabs. What do you know about these? He collided them together in his hand. In what respect? I asked. Physically, chemically, historically? Historically, he grinned. Astound me with your grasp of historical minutiae, Elir. I had asked him what Elir meant once. He claimed it meant wise one, but I had doubts from the way his mouth had quirked when he said it. A long time ago, the people who... How long ago? I frowned at him in mock severity. Roughly 2,000 years ago, the nomadic folk who roamed the foothills around the Shalda Mountains were brought together under one chieftain. What was his name? Heldred. His sons were Heldim and Heldar. Would you like his entire lineage, or should I get to the point? I glowered at him. Yo, no skill, what's going on? Sorry, sir. Ben sat up straight in his seat and assumed such an aspect of rapt attention that we both broke into grins. I started again. Heldred eventually controlled the foothills around the Shalda. This meant that he controlled the mountains themselves. They started to plant crops, their nomadic lifestyle was abandoned, and they slowly began to... Get to the point? Abinthy asked. He tossed the drabs onto the table in front of me. I ignored him as best I could. They controlled the only plentiful and easily accessible source of metal for a great distance, and soon they were the most skilled workers of those metals as well. They exploited this advantage and gained a great deal of wealth and power. Until this point, barter was the most common method of trade. Some larger cities coined their own currency, but outside those cities, the money was only worth the weight of the metal. Bars of metal were better for bartering, but full bars of metal were inconvenient to carry. Ben gave me his best bored student face. The effect was only slightly inhibited by the fact that he had burned his eyebrows off again about 2 days ago. You're not going to go into the merits of representational currency, are you? I took a deep breath and resolved not to pester Ben so much when he was lecturing me. The no longer nomads, called the Sealdim by now, were the first to establish a standardized currency. By cutting one of these smaller bars into 5 pieces, you get 5 drabs. I began to piece 2 rows of 5 drabs each together to illustrate my point. They resembled little ingots of metal. 10 drabs are the same as a copper jot, 10 jots. Good enough, Ben broke in, startling me. So these 2 drabs, he said. A pair out for my inspection. So these 2 drabs, he held a pair out for my inspection. Could have come from the same bar, right? Actually, they probably cast them individually. I trailed off under glare. Sure. So there's something still connecting them, right? He gave me a look again. I didn't really agree, but knew better than to interrupt. Right. He set them both on the table. So when you move one, the other should move, right? I agreed for the sake of argument, then reached out to move one, but Ben stopped my hand, shaking his head. You've got to remind them first. You've got to convince them, in fact. He brought out a bowl and decanted a slow blob of pine pitch into it. He dipped one of the drabs into the pitch and stuck the other one to it, spoke several words I didn't realize, and slowly pulled the bits apart, strands of pitch stretching between them. Hi, Pandy. Welcome in. He set one on the table, keeping the other in his hand. Then he muttered something else and relaxed. He raised his hand, and the drab on the table mimicked the motion. He danced his hand around, and the brown piece of iron bobbled in the air. He looked from me to the coin. The law of sympathy is one of the most basic parts of magic. It states that the more similar two objects are, the greater the sympathetic link. The greater the link, the more easily they influence each other. Your definition is circular. He set down the coin. His lecturer's facade gave way to a grin as he tried with marginal success to wipe the pitch off his hands with a rag. He thought for a while. Seems pretty useless, doesn't it? I gave a hesitant nod. Trick questions were fairly common around lesson time. Would you rather learn how to call the wind? His eyes danced at me. He murmured a word, and the canvas ceiling of the wagon rustled around us. I felt a grin capture my face, wolfish. Too bad, Delir. His grin was wolfish too, and savage. You need to learn your letters before you can write. You need to learn the fingerings on the strings before you can play and sing. He pulled out a piece of paper and jotted a couple of words onto it. The trick is in holding the alar firm in your mind. You need to believe they are connected. You need to know they are. He handed me the paper. Here is the phonetic pronunciation. It's called the sympathetic binding of parallel motion. Practice. He looked even more lupine than before, old and grizzled with no eyebrows. He left to wash his hands. I cleared my mind using Heart of Stone. Soon I was floating on a sea of dispassionate calm. I stuck the 2 bits of metal together with pine pitch. I fixed in my mind the alar, the riding crop belief that the 2 drabs were connected. I said the words, pulled the coins apart, spoke the last word, and waited. No rush of power. No flash of hot or cold. No radiant beam of light struck me. I was rather disappointed, at least as disappointed as I could be in the Heart of Stone. I lifted the coin in my hand, and the coin on the table lifted itself in a similar fashion. It was magic. There was no doubt about that. But I felt rather underwhelmed. I had been expecting... I don't know what I had been expecting. It wasn't this. The rest of that day was spent experimenting with the simple sympathetic binding Abinthy had taught me. I learned that almost anything could be bound together. An iron drab and a silver talent, a stone and a piece of fruit, 2 bricks, a clod of earth and one of the donkeys. It took me about 2 hours to figure out that the pine pitch wasn't necessary. When I asked him, Ben admitted that it was merely an aid for concentration. I think he was surprised that I figured it out without being told. Let me sum up sympathy very quickly, since you will probably never need to have anything other than a rough comprehension of how these things work. First, energy cannot be created or destroyed. When you are lifting one drab and the other rises off the table, the one in your hand feels as heavy as if you're lifting both, because in fact, you are. Hello, Cookie, welcome in. That's in theory. In practice, it feels like you're lifting 3 drabs. No sympathetic link is perfect. The more dissimilar the items, the more energy is lost. Think of it as a leaky aqueduct leading to a water wheel. A good sympathetic link has very few leaks, and most of the energy is used. A bad link is full of holes. Very little of the effort you put into it goes toward what you want to do. For instance, I tried linking a piece of chalk to a glass bottle of water. Thank you for the follow, Cookie. Welcome to the powerhouse. Very glad to have you. For instance, I tried linking a piece of chalk to a glass bottle of water. There was very little similarity between the two, so even though the bottle of water might have weighed 2 pounds, when I tried to lift the chalk, it felt like 60 pounds. The best link I found was a tree branch I had broken in half. After I understood this little piece of sympathy, Ben taught me others. A dozen sympathetic bindings, 100 little tricks for channeling power. Each of them was a different word and a vast vocabulary I was just beginning to speak. Quite often, it was tedious, and I'm not telling you the half of it. Ben continued giving me a smattering of lessons in other areas. History, arithmetic, and chemistry. But I grabbed at whatever he could teach me about sympathy. He doled out his secrets sparingly, making me prove I'd mastered one before giving me another. But I seemed to have a knack for it, above and beyond my natural penchant for absorbing knowledge, so there was never too long a wait. I don't mean to imply that the road was always smooth. The same curiosity that made me such an eager student also led me into trouble with fair regularity. One evening, as I was building up my parents' cook fire, my mother caught me chanting a rhyme I had heard the day before. Not knowing that she was behind me, she overheard as I knocked one stick of firewood against another and absent-mindedly recited. 7 things the lady lackless keeps them underneath her black dress. 1 a ring that's not for wearing. 1 a sharp word not for swearing. Right beside her husband's candle, there's a door without a handle. In a box, no lid or locks, Lackless keeps her husband's rocks. There's a secret she's been keeping. She's been dreaming and not sleeping. On a road that's not for traveling, Lackless likes her riddle raveling. I had heard a little girl chant it as she played hop skip. I'd only heard it twice, but it had stuck in my head. It was memorable, as most child rhymes are. But my mother heard me and came over to stand by the fire. "What were you saying, sweet?" Her tone wasn't angry, but I could tell she wasn't pleased either. "Something I heard back in Falos," I said evasively. Running off with town children was a largely forbidden activity. Distrust turns quickly to dislike, my father told new members of our troop. So stay together when you're in town and be polite. I laid some heavier sticks on the fire and let the flames lick them. My mother was silent for a while, and I was beginning to hope she would leave it alone when she said, "It's not a nice thing to be singing. Have you stopped to think of what it's about?" I hadn't, actually. It seemed mostly nonsense rhyme, but when I ran it back through my head, I saw the rather obvious sexual innuendo. I didn't think about it before." Her expression grew a little gentler, and she reached down to smooth my hair. "Always think about what you're singing, honey." I seemed to be out of trouble, but I couldn't keep from asking, How is it any different than parts of For All His Waiting? Like when Fane asks Lady Periel about her hat. I heard about it from so many men I wish to see it for myself and try the fit. It's pretty obvious what he's really talking about. I watched her mouth grow firm, not angry, but not pleased. Then something in her face changed. You tell me what the difference is, she said. I hated bait questions. The difference was obvious. One would get me in trouble, the other wouldn't. I waited a while to make it clear I had given the matter proper consideration before I shook my head. My mother knelt lightly in front of the fire, warming her hands. The difference is... Go fetch me the tripod, would you? She gave me a gentle push, and I scampered off to get it from the back of our wagon as she continued. The difference is between saying something to a person and saying something about a person. The first might be rude, but the second is always gossip. I brought the tripod back and helped her set it over the fire. Also, Lady Periel is just a character. Lady Lackless is a real person with feelings that can be hurt. She looked up at me. I didn't know, I protested guiltily. I must have struck a sufficiently piteous figure because she gathered me in for a hug and a kiss. It's nothing to cry over, sweet one. Just remember to always think about what you're doing. She ran her hand over my head and smiled like the sun. I imagine you can make it up to both Lady Lackless and myself if you found some sweet nettle for the pot tonight. Any excuse to escape judgment and play for a while in a tangle of trees by the roadside was good enough for me. I was gone almost before the words left her mouth. I should also make it clear that much of the time I spent with Ben was my free time. I was still responsible for my normal duties in the troupe. I acted the part of the young page when needed. I helped paint scenery and sew costumes. I rubbed down the horses at night and rattled the sheet of tin backstage when we needed thunder on stage. But I didn't bemoan the loss of my free time. A child's endless energy and my own insatiable lust for knowledge made the following year one of the happiest times I can remember. I love this book so much. It makes me so happy. What do you guys think? Are you fans? I'm down to read at least like 1 or 2 more chapters tonight. Hey Foxy, how you doing? You're vibing? I'm glad. I'm doing pretty good, Foxy. Thanks for asking. All right. Shall we continue? Chapter 12. Puzzle Pieces Fitting. Toward the end of the summer, I accidentally overheard a conversation that shook me out of my state of blissful ignorance. When we are children, we seldom think of the future. This innocence leaves us free to enjoy ourselves as few adults can. The day we fret about the future is the day we leave our childhood behind. It was evening, and the troop was camped by the side of the road. Abinthy had given me a new piece of sympathy to practice. The maxim of variable heat transferred to constant motion, or something pretentious like that. It was tricky, but it had fallen into place like a puzzle piece fitting. It had taken about 15 minutes, and from Abinthy's tone, I guessed he had expected it to take 3 or 4 hours at least. So I went looking for him, partly to get my next lesson, and partly so that I could be just a little bit smug. I tracked him down to my parents' wagon. I heard the three of them long before I saw them. Their voices were just murmurs, the distant music that a conversation makes when it's too dim for words. But as I was coming close, I heard one word clearly. Chandrian. I pulled up short when I heard that. Everyone in the troop knew my father was working on a song. He'd been teasing old stories and rhymes from townsfolk for over a year whenever we stopped to play. 4 months it was stories about Lanre. Then he started gathering old fairy stories too, legends about bogies and shamblemen. Then he began to ask questions about the Chandrian. That was months ago. Over the last half year, he had asked more about the Chandrian and less about Lanre, Lyra, and the rest. Most songs my father set to writing were finished in a single season, while this one was stretching toward its second year. You know this as well. My father never let a word or whisper of a song be heard before it was ready to play. Only my mother was allowed into his confidence, as her hand was always in any song he made. The cleverness in the music was his. The best words were hers. When you wait a few span or month to hear a finished song, the anticipation adds savor. But after a year, excitement begins to sour. By now, a year and a half had passed and folk were almost mad with curiosity. This occasionally led to hard words when someone was caught wandering a little too close to our wagon while my father and mother were working. So I moved closer to my parents' fire, stepping softly. Eavesdropping is a deplorable habit, but I had developed worse ones since. Much about them, I heard Ben say, but I'm willing. I'm glad to talk with an educated man on the subject. My father's strong baritone was a contrast to Ben's tenor. I'm weary of these superstitious country folk, and Someone added wood to the fire, and I lost my father's words in the crackling that followed. Stepping as quickly as I dared, I moved into the long shadow of my parents' wagon. Like I'm chasing ghosts with this story. Trying to piece together the story is a fool's game. I wish I'd never started it. Nonsense, my mother said. This will be your best work, and you know it. So you think there's an original story all the others stem from? Ben asked. A historical basis for Lanre? All the signs point to it, my father said. It's like looking at a dozen grandchildren and seeing 10 of them have blue eyes. You know the grandmother had blue eyes too. I've done this before, I'm good at it. I wrote below the walls in the same way. But I heard him sigh. What's the problem then? The story's older, my mother explained. It's more like he's looking at great-great-grandchildren. And they're scattered to the 4 corners, my father groused. And when I finally do find one, it's got 5 eyes, 2 greens, a blue, a brown, and a chartreuse. The next one has only 1 eye, and it changes colors. How am I supposed to draw conclusions from that? Ben cleared his throat. A disturbing analogy, he said. But you're welcome to pick my brain about the Chandrian. I've heard a lot of stories over the years. The first thing I need to know is how many there actually are, my father said. Most stories say 7, but even that's conflicted. Some say 3, others 5, and in Felior's Fall, there are a full 13 of them. 1 for each pontifet in Atur, and an extra for the capital. That I can answer, Ben said. 7. You can hold to that with some certainty. It's part of the name actually. Shan means 7. Chandrian means 7 of them. Chandrian. I didn't know that, my father said. Shan. What language is that? Ilish? Sounds like Tema, my mother said. You've got a good ear, Ben said to her. It's Temic, actually. Predates Tema by about 1,000 years. Well, that simplifies things, I heard my father say. I wish I'd asked you a month ago. I don't suppose you know why they do what they do? I could tell by my father's tone that he didn't really expect an answer. That's the real mystery, isn't it? Ben chuckled. I think that's what makes them more frightening than the rest of the bogeymen you hear about in stories. A ghost wants revenge, a demon wants your soul, a shamble man is hungry and cold. It makes them less terrible. Things we understand we can try to control. But Chandrian come like lightning from a clear blue sky. Just destruction. No rhyme or reason to it. My song will have both, my father said with grim determination. I think I've dug up their reason after all this while. I've teased it together from bits and pieces of story. That's what's so galling about this, to have the harder part of this done and have all these small specifics giving me such trouble. You think you know? Ben said curiously. What's your theory? My father gave a low chuckle. Oh no, Ben. You'll have to wait with the others. I've sweated too long over this song to give away the heart of it before it's finished. I could hear the disappointment in Ben's voice. I'm sure this is all just an elaborate ruse to keep me traveling with you, he groused. I won't be able to leave until I've heard this blackened thing. Then help us finish it, my mother said. The Chandrian signs are another key piece of information we can't nail down. Everyone agrees there are signs that warn of their presence, but nobody agrees on what they are. Let me think, Ben said. Blue flame is obvious, of course, but I'd hesitate to attribute that to the Chandrian in particular. In some stories, it's a sign of demons. In others, it's fake creatures or magic of any sort. It shows bad air in mines, too, my mother pointed out. Does it? My father asked. She nodded. When a lamp burns with a blue haze, you know there's fire damp in the air. Good Lord, fire damp in a coal mine, my father said. Blow out your light and get lost in the black, or leave it burn and blow the whole place to flinders. That's more frightening than any demon. I'll also admit to the fact that certain arcanists occasionally use prepared candles or torches to impress gullible townsfolk, Ben said, clearing his throat self-consciously. My mother laughed. Remember who you're talking to, Ben. We'd never hold a little showmanship against a man. In fact, blue candles would be just the thing the next time we played Daonica. Daonica. Sorry, hard to read. If you happen to find a couple tucked away somewhere, that is. I'll see what I can do, Ben said, his voice amused. Other signs. One of them is supposed to have eyes like a goat, or no eyes, or black eyes. I've heard that one quite a bit. I've heard that plants die when the Chandrian are around. Wood rots, metal rusts, brick crumbles. He paused. Though I don't know if that's several signs or all one. You begin to see the trouble I'm having, my father said morosely. And there's still a question as to if they all share the same signs, or have a couple each. I've told you, my mother said, exasperated. One sign for each of them. It makes the most sense. My lady wife's favorite theory, my father said. But it doesn't fit. In some stories, the only sign is blue flame. In others, you have animals going crazy and no blue flame. In others, you have a man with black eyes and animals going mad and blue flame. I've told you how to make sense of that, she said, her irritated tone indicating they'd had this particular discussion before. They don't always have to be together. They could go out in threes or fours. If one of them makes fires dim, then it'll look the same as if they all made the fires dim. That would account for the differences in the stories. Different numbers and different signs depending on how they're grouped together. My father grumbled something. That's a clever wife you've got there, Arl, Ben spoke up, breaking the tension. How much will you sell her for? I need her for my work, unfortunately, but if you're interested in a short-term rental, I'm sure we could arrange a reason. There was a fleshy thump followed by a slightly pained chortle in my father's baritone. Any other signs that spring to mind? They're supposed to be cold to the touch, though how anyone could know that is beyond me. I've heard that fires don't burn around them, though that directly contradicts the blue flame. It could, the wind picked up, stirring the trees. The rustling leaves drowned out what Ben said. I took advantage of the noise to creep a few steps closer. Being yoked to shadow, whatever that means. I heard my father say as the wind died. Oh, being yoked to shadow, whatever that means. I heard my father say as the wind died down. Ben grunted. I couldn't say either. I heard a story where they were given away because their shadows pointed the wrong way toward the light. And there was another where one of them was referred to as Shadow-Hamed. It was something the Shadow-Hamed. Damned if I can't remember the name, though. Speaking of names, that's another point I'm having trouble with, my father said. There are a couple dozen I've collected that I appreciate your opinion on. The most, actually, are, Ben interrupted. I'd appreciate it if you didn't say them out loud. Names of people, that is. You can scratch them in the dirt if you'd like, or I could go fetch a slate. But I'd be more comfortable if you didn't actually say any of them. Better safe than sore, as they say. There was a deep piece of silence. I stopped mid-sneak with one foot off the ground, afraid they'd heard me. Now, don't go looking at me like that, either of you, Ben said testily. We're just surprised, Ben, came my mother's gentle voice. You don't seem the superstitious type. I'm not, Ben said. I'm careful. There's a difference. Of course, my father said. I'd never... Save it for the paying customers, Ben cut him off, irritation plain in his voice. You're too good an actor to show it, but I know perfectly well when someone thinks I'm daft. I just didn't expect it, Ben, my father said apologetically. You're educated, and I'm so tired of people touching iron and tipping their beer as soon as I mention the Chandrian. I'm just reconstructing a story, not meddling with dark arts. Well, hear me out. I like both of you too well to let you think of me as an old fool, Ben said. Besides, I have something to talk with you about later, and I'll need you to take me seriously for that. The wind continued to pick up, and I used the noise to cover my last few steps. I edged around the corner of my parents' wagon and peered through a veil of leaves. The three of them were sitting around the campfire. Ben was sitting on a stump, huddled in his frayed brown cloak. My parents were opposite him, my mother leaning against my father, a blanket draped loosely around them. Ben poured from a clay jug into a leather mug and handed it to my mother. His breath fogged as he spoke. How do they feel about demons off in Ator? He asked. Scared, my father tapped his temple. All that religion makes their brains soft. How about off in Ventus? Ben asked. Fair number of them are Tellans. Do they feel the same way? My mother shook her head. They think it's a little silly. They like their demons metaphorical. What are they afraid of at night in Ventus, then? The Fae, my mother said. My father spoke at the same time. Draugr. You're both right, depending on which part of the country you're in, Ben said. And here in the Commonwealth, people laugh up their sleeves at both ideas. He gestured at the surrounding trees. But here they're careful come autumn time for fear of drawing the attention of shamblemen. That's the way of things, my father said. Half of being a good trooper is knowing which way your audience leans. You still think I've gone cracked in the head, Ben said, amused. Listen, if tomorrow we pulled into Baron and someone told you there were shamblemen in the woods, would you believe them? My father shook his head. What if 2 people told you? Another shake. Ben leaned forward on his stump. What if 12 people told you with perfect earnestness that shamblemen were out in the fields eating? Of course I wouldn't believe them, my father said, irritated. It's ridiculous. Of course it is, Ben agreed, raising a finger. But the real question is this. Would you go into the woods? My father sat very still and thoughtful for a moment. Ben nodded. You'd be a fool to ignore half the town's warning, even though you don't believe the same thing they do. If not shamblemen, what are you afraid of? Bears. Bandits. Good, sensible fears for a trooper to have, Ben said. Fears that townfolk don't appreciate. Every place has its little superstitions, and everyone laughs at what the folk across the river think. He gave them a serious look. But have either of you ever heard a humorous song or story about the Chandrian? I'll bet a penny you haven't. My mother shook her head after a moment's thought. My father took a long drink before joining her. Now, I'm not saying that the Chandrian are out there striking like lightning from the clear blue sky, but folk everywhere are afraid of them. There's usually a reason for that. Ben grinned and tipped his clay cup, pouring the last drizzle of beer out onto the earth. And names are strange things, dangerous things. He gave them a pointed look. That I know for true because I am an educated man. If I'm a mite superstitious too, he shrugged. Well, that's my choice. I'm old. You'll have to humor me. My father nodded thoughtfully. It's odd I never noticed that everyone treats the Chandrian the same. It's something I should have seen. He shook his head as if to clear it. We can come back to names later, I suppose. What was it you wanted to talk about? I prepared to sneak off before I was caught, but what Ben said next froze me in place before I took a single step. It's probably hard to see, being his parents and all, but your young quoth is rather bright. Ben refilled his cup and held out the jug to my father, who declined it. As a matter of fact, bright doesn't begin to cover it, not by half. My mother watched Ben over the top of her mug. Anyone who spends a little time with the boy can see that, Ben. I don't see why anyone would make a point of it, least of all you. I don't think you really grasped the situation, Ben said, stretching his feet almost into the fire. How easily did he pick up the loot? My father seemed a little surprised by the sudden change of topic. Fairly easily. Why? How old was he? My father tugged thoughtfully at his beard for a moment. In the silence, my mother's voice was like a flute. 8. Think back to when you learned to play. Can you remember how old you were? Can you remember the sort of difficulties you had? My father continued to tug on his beard, but his face was more reflective now, his eyes far away. Abinthy continued. I'll bet he learned each chord, each fingering, after being shown just once. No stumbling, no complaining. And when he did make a mistake, it was never more than once, right? Yo, Contiguous, what's going on, man? Welcome. My father seemed a little perturbed. Mostly, but he did have trouble, just the same as anyone else. E chord. He had a lot of trouble with greater and diminished E. I hope the rest of your Valo games yesterday were good, just as good as the one we played. My mother broke in softly. I remember too, dear, but I think it was just his small hands. He was awfully young. I bet it didn't stall him for long, Ben said quietly. He does have marvelous hands. My mother would have called them magician's fingers. My father smiled. He gets them from his mother, delicate but strong. Perfect for scrubbing pots, eh, woman? My mother swatted him, then caught one of his hands in her own and unfolded it for Ben to see. He gets them from his father, graceful and gentle, perfect for seducing young nobles' daughters. My father started to protest, but she ignored him. With his eyes and those hands, there won't be a woman safe in all the world when he starts hunting after the ladies. Courting, dear, my father corrected gently. Semantics, she shrugged. It's all a chase, and when the race is done, I think I pity chaste women who run. She leaned back against my father, keeping his hand in her lap. She tilted her head slightly, and he took his cue, leaning in to kiss the corner of her mouth. Amen, Ben said, raising his mug in salute. My father put his other arm around her and gave her a squeeze. I still don't see what you're getting at, Ben. He does everything that way. Quick as a whip, hardly ever makes mistakes. I'll bet he knows every song you've ever sung to him. He knows more about what's in my wagon than I do. He picked up the jug and uncorked it. It's not just memorization, though. He understands. Half the things I've been meaning to show him, he's already figured out for himself. Ben refilled my mother's cup. He's 11. Have you ever known a boy his age who talks the way he does? A great deal of it comes from living in such an enlightened atmosphere. Ben gestured to the wagons. But most 11-year-olds' deepest thoughts have to do with skipping stones and how to swing a cat by the tail. My mother laughed like bells, but Abinthy's face was serious. It's true, lady. I've had older students that would have loved to do half as well. He grinned. If I had his hands and 1/4 his wit, I'd be eating off silver plates inside a year. There was a lull. My mother spoke softly. I remember when he was just a little baby, toddling around, watching, always watching, with clear, bright eyes that looked like they wanted to swallow up the world. Her voice had a little quaver in it. My father put his arm around her and she rested her head on his chest. The next silence was longer. I was considering sneaking away when my father broke it. What is it you suggest we do? His voice was a mix of mild concern and fatherly pride. Ben smiled gently. Nothing, except to think about what options you might give him when the time comes. He will leave his mark on the world as one of the best. The best what? My father rumbled. Whatever he chooses. If he stays here, I don't doubt he will become the next Ilian. My father smiled. Ilian is the trooper's hero, the only true famous Indy Maru in all of history. All our oldest, best songs are his. What's more, if you believe the stories, Ilian reinvented the lute in his lifetime. A master luthier, Ilian transformed the archaic, fragile, unwieldy court lute into the marvelous, versatile 7-string trooper's lute we use today. The same stories claim Ilian's own lute had 8 strings in all. Ilian, I like that thought, my mother said. Kings coming from miles away to hear my little Kvothe play. Is music stopping ballroom brawls and border wars? Ben smiled. The wild women in his lap, my father enthused, laying their breasts on his head. There was a moment of stunned silence. Then my mother spoke softly, with an edge to her voice. I think you mean wild beasts laying their heads in his lap. Do I? Ben coughed and continued. If he decides to become an arcanist, I bet he'll have a royal appointment by the time he's 24. If he gets it into his head to be a merchant, I don't doubt he'll own half the world by the time he dies. My father's brow knitted together. Ben smiled and said, Don't worry about the last one. He's too curious for a merchant. Ben paused as if considering his next words very carefully. He'd be accepted into the university, you know. Not for years, of course. 17 is about as young as they go, but I have no doubts about. I missed the rest of what Ben said. The university. I'd come to think of it in the same way most children think of the Fae Court, a mythical place reserved for dreaming about. A school the size of a small town. 10 times 10,000 books. People who would know the answers to any question I could ever ask. It was quiet when I turned my attention back to them. My father was looking down at my mother, nestled under his arm. How about it, woman? Did you expect to bed down with some wandering god a dozen years ago? Did you happen to bed down with some wandering god a dozen years ago? That might solve her little mystery. She swatted at him playfully, and a thoughtful look crossed her face. Come to think of it, there was a night about a dozen years ago a man came to me. He bound me with kisses and chords of chorded song. He robbed me of my virtue and stole me away. She paused. But he didn't have red hair. Couldn't be him. She smiled wickedly at my father, who appeared a little embarrassed. Then she kissed him. He kissed her back. That's how I like to remember them today. I snuck away with thoughts of the university dancing in my head. Okay, I think we'll read one more chapter. Yo, Winnie, what's going on? You're getting so sleepy. That's not a bad thing. All right. Chapter 13. Interlude. Flesh with blood beneath. In the Waystone Inn, there was a silence. It surrounded the two men sitting at a table in an otherwise empty room. Kvothe had stopped speaking, and while he seemed to be staring down at his folded hands, in reality his eyes were far away. When he finally pulled his gaze upward, he seemed almost surprised to find Chronicler sitting across the table, pen poised above his inkwell. Kvothe let out his breath self-consciously and motioned Chronicler to set down his pen. After a moment, Chronicler complied, wiping the nib of the pen on a clean cloth before setting it down. I could use a drink, Kvothe announced suddenly, as if he were surprised. I haven't told many stories lately, and I find myself unreasonably dry. He rose smoothly from the table and began to make his way through the maze of empty tables toward the empty bar. I can offer you almost anything: dark ale, pale wine, spiced cider, chocolate, coffee. Chronicler raised an eyebrow. Chocolate would be wonderful if you have it. I wouldn't expect to find that sort of thing as far from... He cleared his throat politely. Well, anywhere. We have everything here at the Waystone, Kvothe said, making an offhand gesture to the empty room. Accepting any customers, of course. He brought an earthenware jug up from underneath the bar, then set it on the bar with a hollow sound. He sighed before calling out. Bast, bring up the cider, would you? An indistinct reply echoed from a doorway at the back of the room. Bast, Kvothe chided, seemingly too quiet to be heard. Shag down here and get it yourself, you hack, the voice shouted up from the basement. I'm in the middle of something. Hired help? Chronicler asked. Kvothe leaned his elbows on the bar and smiled indulgently. After a moment, the sound of someone climbing a set of wooden stairs in hard-soled boots echoed from the doorway. Bast stepped into the room, muttering under his breath. He was dressed simply, black long-sleeve shirt tucked into black pants tucked into soft black boots. His face was sharp and delicate, almost beautiful, with striking blue eyes. He carried a jug to the bar, walking with a strange and not unpleasant grace. One customer? He said reproachfully. You couldn't get it yourself? You pulled me away from Selim Tincture. You've been harping on me to read it for nearly a month now. Bast, do you know what they do to students at the university who eavesdrop on their teachers? Kvothe asked archly. Bast put a hand on his chest and began to protest his innocence. Bast. Kvothe gave him a stern look. Bast closed his mouth and for a moment looked as if he was about to try and offer some explanation. Then his shoulders slumped. How did you know? Kvothe chuckled. You've been avoiding that book for a mortal age. Either you would suddenly become an exceptionally dedicated student, or you were doing something incriminating. What do they do to students at the university who eavesdrop? Bast asked curiously. I haven't the slightest idea. I was never caught. I think making you sit and listen to the rest of my story should be punishment enough. But I forget myself, Kvothe said, gesturing to the common room. We are neglecting our guest. Chronicler seemed anything but bored. As soon as Bast entered the room, Chronicler began to watch him curiously. As the conversation continued, Chronicler's expression had grown by degrees more puzzled and more intent. In fairness, something ought to be said about Bast. At first glance, he looked to be an average, if attractive, young man. But there was something different about him. For instance, he wore soft black leather boots. At least, if you looked at him, that's what you saw. But if you happened to catch a glimpse of him from the corner of your eye, and if he were standing in the right type of shadow, you might see something else entirely. And if you had the right sort of mind, the sort of mind that actually sees what it looks at, you might notice that his eyes were odd. If your mind had the rare talent of not being fooled by its own expectations, you might notice something else about them, something strange and wonderful. Because of this, Chronicler had been staring at Quoth's young student, trying to decide what was different about him. By the time their conversation was through, Chronicler's gaze would be considered intense at the very least, and rude by most. When Bast finally turned from the bar, Chronicler's eyes widened perceptibly, and the color drained from his already pale face. Chronicler reached inside his shirt and tugged something from around his neck. He set it on the table at arm's length between himself and Bast. All this was done in half a second, and his eyes never left the dark-haired young man at the bar. Chronicler's face was calm as he pressed the metal disc firmly onto the table with 2 fingers. "Iron," he said, his voice sounding with strange resonance, as if it were an order to be obeyed. Bast doubled over as if punched in the stomach, baring his teeth and making a noise halfway between a growl and a scream. Moving with an unnatural, sinuous speed, he drew one hand back to the side of his head and tensed himself to spring. It all happened in the time it takes to draw a sharp breath. Still, somehow, Quoth's long-fingered hand caught Bast's wrist. Unaware or uncaring, Bast leapt toward Chronicler only to be brought up short as if Quoth's hand were a shackle. Bast struggled furiously to free himself, but Quoth stood behind the bar, arm outstretched, motionless as steel or stone. "Stop," Quoth's voice struck the air like a commandment, and in the stillness that followed, his words were sharp and angry. "I will have no fighting among my friends. I have lost enough without that." His eyes caught Chronicler. "Undo that, or I will break it." Chronicler paused, shaken. Then his mouth moved silently, and with a slight tremor he drew his hand away from the circle of dull metal that lay upon the table. Tension poured out of Bast, and for a moment he hung limp as a rag doll from the wrist Quoth still held, standing behind the bar. Shakily, Bast managed to find his feet and lean against the bar. Quoth gave him a long, searching look, then released his wrist. Bast slumped onto the stool without taking his eyes from Chronicler. He moved gingerly, like a man with a tender wound. And he had changed. The eyes that watched Chronicler were still a striking ocean blue, but now they showed themselves to be all one color, like gems or deep forest pools, and his soft leather boots had been replaced with graceful cloven hooves. Quoth motioned Chronicler forward imperiously, then turned to grab 2 thick glasses and a bottle, seemingly at random. He set the glasses down at Bast and Chronicler's eyes He set the glasses down as Bast and Chronicler eyed each other uneasily. "Now," Quoth said angrily, "you've both acted understandably, but that does not by any means mean that either of you has behaved well. So, we might as well start over altogether." He drew a deep breath. "Bast, let me introduce you to Devin Lockhees, also known as Chronicler, by all accounts a great teller, rememberer, and recorder of stories. In addition, unless I have suddenly lost all my wit, an accomplished member of the Arcanum, at least Relar, and one of perhaps 20 people in the world who knows the name of Iron." "However," Quoth continued, "in spite of these accolades, he seems to be a bit innocent in the ways of the world, as demonstrated by his plentiful lack of wit in making a near-suicidal attack on what I guess is the first of the folk he has ever had the luck to see." Chronicler stood impassively throughout the introduction, watching Bast as if he were a snake. Chronicler, I would like you to meet Bastas, son of Renmin, Prince of Twilight and the Telwyth Mile, the brightest, which is to say, the only student I've had the misfortune to teach, glamorer, bartender, and not last, my friend, who, over the course of 150 years of life, not to mention nearly 2 years of my personal tutelage, has managed to avoid learning a few important facts. The first being this: attacking a member of the Arcanum skilled enough to make a binding of iron is foolish. He attacked me, said Bast hotly. Kvothe looked at him coolly. I didn't say it was unjustified. I said it was foolish. I would have won. Very likely, but you would have been hurt, and he would be hurt or dead. Do you remember that I had introduced him as my guest? Bast was silent. His expression remained belligerent. Now, said Kvothe with a brittle cheerfulness, you've been introduced. Pleased, said Bast icily. Likewise, Chronicler returned. Castia, thank you for the raid. Welcome in, Raiders. My name is Mido. I'm a villain VTuber. And y'all better be careful, because once you get caught in my clutches, it's not so easy to leave. How was your stream? Thank you for the shoutout, C. Five Nights at Freddy's. Ooh, this is a very different vibe from that. I hope you had a good stream. We're reading Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. It's my favorite book. But we are also about to end stream pretty soon. It was good. You need some relaxation after that game? Well, unfortunately, I won't be going much longer, but there will always be the VOD if you need some relaxation. And I very much appreciate the raid. We've got about a page and a half left. There is no reason for you two to be anything other than friends, Kvothe continued, an edge creeping into his voice. And that is not how friends greet each other. Bast and Chronicler stared at each other, neither moved. Kvothe's voice grew quiet. If you do not stop this foolishness, you may both leave now. One of you will be left with a slim sliver of a story, and the other can search out a new teacher. If there is one thing I will not abide, it is the folly of a willful pride. Something about the low intensity of Kvothe's voice broke the stare between them. And when they turned to look at him, it seemed that someone very different was standing behind the bar. The jovial innkeeper was gone, and in his place stood someone dark and fierce. He's so young, Chronicler marveled. He can't be more than 25. Why didn't I see it before? He could break me in his hands like a kindling stick. How did I ever mistake him for an innkeeper, even for a moment? Then he saw Kvothe's eyes. They had deepened to a green so dark they were nearly black. This is who I came to see, Chronicler thought to himself. This is the man who counseled kings and walked old roads with nothing but wit to guide him. This is the man whose name has become both praise and curse at the university. Kvothe stared at the Chronicler and Bast in turn. Neither could meet his eye for very long. After an awkward pause, Bast extended his hand. Chronicler hesitated for a bare moment before reaching out quickly, as if he were sticking his hand into a fire. Nothing happened. Both of them seemed moderately surprised. Amazing, isn't it? Kvothe addressed them bitingly. 5 fingers in flesh with blood beneath. One could almost believe that on the other end of that hand lay a person of some sort. Guilt crept into the expressions of the two men. They let go of each other's hands. Kvothe poured something from the green bottle into the glasses. This simple gesture changed him. He seemed to fade back into himself, until there was little left of the dark-eyed man who'd stood behind the bar a moment ago. Chronicler felt a pang of loss as he stared at the innkeeper with one hand hidden in a linen rag. Now, Kvothe pushed the glasses toward them. Take these drinks, sit at the table, and talk. When I come back, I don't want to find either one of you dead or the building on fire. Fair? Bast gave an embarrassed smile as Chronicler picked up the glasses and moved back to the table. Bast followed him and almost sat down before returning to grab the bottle too. Not too much of that, Quoth cautioned as he stepped into the back room. I don't want you giggling through my story. The two at the table began a tense, halting conversation as Quoth moved into the kitchen. Several minutes later, he emerged, bringing out cheese and a loaf of dark bread, cold chicken and sausage, butter, and honey. They moved to a larger table as Quoth brought the platters out, bustling about and looking every bit the innkeeper. Chronicler watched him covertly, finding it hard to believe that this man humming to himself and cutting sausage could be the same person who had stood behind the bar just minutes ago, dark-eyed and terrible. As Chronicler gathered his paper and quills, Quoth studied the angle of the sun through the window, a pensive look on his face. Eventually, he turned to Bast. How much did you manage to overhear? Most of it, Reshi, Bast smiled. I have good ears. That's good. We don't have time to backtrack. He drew a deep breath. Let's get back to it then. Brace yourselves. The story takes a turn now. Downward. Darker. Clouds are on the horizon. And that is where we will end it today. I can feel my throat starting to hurt a little bit, so I want to take it a little bit easy. Yeah. But thank you guys for joining me today. It was a nice time. It was nice to actually sit down and read with you guys again. Let's see who's live. Who can we raid today? Ooh. I don't often have an opportunity to raid Pat. Okay, we're raiding Pat. Before we do so, if you're not in the Discord yet, make sure to join. That is the #1 best way to support me. If you'd like to. Here's a link to all of my other socials. Feel free to check those out. I just posted an ASMR boyfriend audio on my YouTube. So go check that out if you like. And there will be more on Monday. I did record and schedule an upload for YouTube for Monday. So keep a lookout for that. I'll be recording more and posting them regularly. At least as regularly as I can. Yeah, we're gonna raid Pat, Jellyfish Rave. He's playing Astroneer right now. And his title is Cozy Space Mode. So might be a little bit on the cozier side, but Pat usually has some wild energy. Yeah, thank you for hanging out, guys. It's been a pleasure as always. The next time I'll be live is tomorrow. I believe at the same time. 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. It'll be 9 a.m. for me. I will be playing Inside the Backrooms with my good friend Emmy Arcturus. It's gonna be a good time. I have no idea how this game is, but we wanted to play something on the spookier side. And she's a blast. If you do want to go check out Emmy, here's a link to her page. Yeah, tomorrow's going to be a lot of fun, so look forward to it. I can't wait to see you there. What's the raid message? Fuck, I forgot about a raid message. I should just make this one a command because I like it. Sneaking into your chat. Alright, guys. I will see you over there. Thank you again. Until next time, mata kono ne. Mwah.